In The Origins of Totalitarianism, Arendt wrote that the ideal subject of totalitarian rule is not the convinced Nazi or the convinced communist, but people for whom the distinction between fact and fiction, true and false, no longer exists. Daniel Kahneman's dual process theory identifies two cognitive systems of the human mind. System 1 is fast, automatic, and emotional, whereas System 2 is slow, deliberate, and logical. You can experience this right now. Perform a true or false test, and you'll activate your System 1. Perform a multiple choice test, and you'll activate your System 2. When the human mind is confronted with binary choices, System 1 handles the decision processing with its automatic emotional response, and it never gets any further analysis. System 1 goes back to our most basic survival instincts, and it is good for processing binary choices such as fight or flight, edible or toxic, alive or dead, but it is not suitable for processing complex issues. This is what System 2 is for. And it is well known in today's study of psychology that when the human mind is presented with only two options, the work automatically goes to System 1, and critical thinking is avoided. The purpose for having these two cognitive systems is efficiency. Once the brain recognizes a binary choice, it reduces cognitive load to a minimum by sending it to System 1. And when cognitive load is at a minimum, people are even more susceptible to external persuasion and group mind. The key to successfully controlling people is to keep them in this binary world so that their critical thinking is rarely, if ever, engaged. And this is best done by keeping them emotional. Both anger and fear will do the job. With us or against us, patriot or traitor, support this policy or you want people to die, are all binary choices used over and over again to keep people anchored in binary thinking and render them blind. Published experiments will tell you that when humans are reminded of their mortality or of any existential threat, they will cling more tightly to their beliefs and their worldview and become more hostile to those who challenge it. This is why political discourse uses apocalyptic language. It is understood in psychology that people's beliefs will strengthen when they are attacked. This is called attitude entrenchment. The human mind is predisposed to categorize people into in-groups and out-groups, to favor in-group members and belittle out-group members in order to elevate their own in-group status. And it is known that it takes very little to activate this tribalism. Some experiments have used a simple coin flip to steer people towards in-group acceptance. This innate human tribalism has been weaponized through politically constructed binaries that were designed to both divide people and to make them see the world however the designers want them to. In Propaganda, The Formation of Men's Attitudes, Ellul wrote that propaganda works best when it simplifies complex realities into binary choices, because humans crave the cognitive relief of simple answers, and that the most effective propaganda isn't spreading lies, it is spreading binary frameworks that make certain conclusions appear inevitable. This binary brainwashing has been going on for generations, and for many people, political positions have become their identity. Their social belonging, self-identity, and status are built upon it. And for many, the discomfort of challenging one's own beliefs and admitting error is too much to handle. It is far more convenient to go with simple binary choices and move with the herd. But if you have any desire for the truth, then you will have to learn to apply critical thinking to everything. And most importantly, learn how your mind is being manipulated. Greg Reese reporting.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Diamond Report Live. This is Doug Diamond, your host. It's 9:05 p.m. on January 18th, 2026. We are here yet again. And how about that Reese report? I thought it was good. Yes, the binary world. We do live in a binary world, don't we? Everything. Politics and of course, the digital world is binary as well. Ones and zeros. So, yeah, I thought that was a pretty good video. I hadn't played any of Greg's most recent videos because I felt like they were really new agey, and this one was not that way, I didn't think. So, anyway, I do think he puts out some good work, and continue to follow him on Rumble and other places as well. So hello and welcome. Glad you guys are here and have made it yet again. I have the Daily Mail article pulled up, the first one I was going to start with this week, just because it's sort of all over the news, and the last few days, the whole deal going on in Minneapolis, especially just in Minnesota in general. I guess it's been quite the mess up there, quite the story lately. More than 1,000 active duty soldiers set to be deployed in out of control Minnesota as Trump prepares to bring the hammer down. Yeah, I think it's mostly just the blue cities. St. Paul and Minneapolis in particular, from what I understand, is ground zero. Says Trump has moved to place more than 1,500 Army paratroopers on standby as chaotic anti-ICE protests sweep Minnesota. In the wake of the violent clashes in Minneapolis between demonstrators and law enforcement, the White House has reportedly asked federal troops to stand at the ready. Defense officials revealed the plans to ABC News on Saturday, saying the active duty soldiers would be deployed from the 11th Airborne Division, which is based in Alaska. The base is reportedly one of the Army's premier infantry units positioned to help deter China, but Trump is set to move resources to crush protests that erupted in Minneapolis over the ICE shooting of resident Renee Good. She was a Colorado resident, actually. Renee Good on January 7th. Officials reportedly said that Trump has not yet decided if the troops will be deployed. Yes, this sort of hanging on the edge, on the precipice, and we're all waiting to see if he declares the Insurrection Act valid in the Minneapolis area. I don't think it will be the end of the world, as many people are saying, if that's what happens. Look, I lived through the LA riots in Los Angeles. I was there when the Rodney King riots happened in 1990. I lived through it, 1990, 91, whenever that was. Not a big deal. It was at the time, but no one thought the entire city was going to burn down. No one thought Bush was going to have armed troops going door to door in Los Angeles and checking people's ID or whatever. No one thought that. No one thought that the Insurrection Act was going to be coast to coast. It was really just a localized area based on the LA riots, and that's what we're seeing here. If this is something that he decides to do, which I think at this point he's really running out of options. So I would look for him to do this potentially, but it's a no-win situation really as far as the president goes. But I do think that given the fact that people's lives are in jeopardy, not just the ICE agents, but just in general, a lot of civilians are being harassed and hurt, and property being damaged and destroyed as well. So I feel like he's running out of options. He's probably going to have to do it. So we'll see what happens, obviously. Now, this is a Daily Mail article, and then let's look at Hal's headlines. We've got several different things across the board here on HalTurnerRadioshow.com. I just thought I would mention the headlines. You guys can go check it out if you want. Although what we're looking at here, you may have to log in to see this. This is just some of the different headlines. Nothing secretive, no covert intel is being released here, but there are some headlines here we could look at. Russia to seize assets of international Satanists. And I would also add that Hal talks about all these things on his radio show. So if you haven't already heard these things and can't log in, don't have an account, and do want to hear about these things, you can tune into his radio show. I do know he mentions almost everything on the website. Again, free, totally free. Every evening, I think it's at, I want to say 9 p.m. Central Time. I'm not sure if that's 9 Eastern or 9 Central when he starts. I always listen to it the next day or several days later, often. So, but yeah, you can access it through the same website, and it's a good show. Russia to seize assets of international Satanists, quote unquote, and there are a lot of those, aren't there? I think it's basically the ones that run the West, the ones that run our country, international Satanists. F-15E fighters deployed to Middle East, and the whole world is watching. So fighters deployed to the Middle East. And again, that's sort of been put on the back burner, I think, for the moment. But that's what we thought about Maduro and Venezuela, too, wasn't it? German troops are fleeing Greenland on orders from Berlin. So that's interesting. Yeah, there were some I guess, EU troops in Greenland to protect Greenland from the Americans, from invading, I guess. USS Abraham Lincoln detected near Malacca Strait, and U.S. moves amphibious assault ships near Cuba. So we've got all this movement going around all over the world. Also says issues NOTAMs, notice to air missions for Mexico, Central and South America, quote, military activity. So, wow. And then massive military deployment in progress for Iranian strike. I think that's all been paused. I think it was in the midst of starting, and they literally had planes in the sky, and Trump basically called them back at that point. And then United States hunting for Russian submarine in the Gulf as of a couple days ago, as in the Gulf of America, the Gulf of Mexico. So not too surprising. I know I've heard from multiple sources over the years that there are Russian subs sitting off of both coasts, so why not in the Gulf of Mexico? I mean, obviously, it seems like a given. And then right here is the covert intel, just a headline. Iran attacked, was halted minutes before the go order, so that's what I mentioned before. And Hal has mentioned that on his radio show. Again, free to anyone who wants to tune in and listen. And yes, socialism works so well that people build boats from trash to escape it. Pretty good meme. So Hal's doing a good job and put some really good info on his website, of course, and then radio show, which I highly recommend. And then let's move on to needtoknow.news, which is one of the first websites I like to look at just because there's always some really good headlines on here and good stories. This first one is what we actually started the show with tonight. Greg Reese explains how people are controlled by binary thinking and its blind spots. Daniel Kahneman's dual process theory identifies two cognitive systems of the human mind. System 1 is fast, automatic, and emotional, whereas System 2 is slow, deliberate, and logical. Which one are you? Which one do you use most? When the human mind is confronted with binary choices, System 1 handles the decision processing with its automatic emotional response, and it never gets any further analysis. Yeah, that's the fight or flight, whatever it was that he referred to as far as stage 1, step 1, System 1. Once the brain recognizes that there is a binary choice, it reduces cognitive load to a minimum by sending it to System 1. And when cognitive load is at a minimum, people are even more susceptible to external persuasion and group mind. Yeah, so that's why they want to keep us in the System 1, as they're calling it here, in the brainstem functionality, where we are just reacting. So that explains the binary thinking. I think that's a pretty good way of describing it. Of course, there's further information, and we just watched the video that's embedded on this page. So anyway, have a look at that if you guys are interested. I thought this one was very telling as well. Tucker Carlson, Russia will nuke Germany and the UK if the Ukraine war continues, and was warned by top advisor by Putin. Tucker explained that the war between Ukraine and Russia is a proxy war between Europe and the U.S. versus Russia. No kidding. Russia changed its law and has now permitted itself to blow up Germany, even though Germany does not have nuclear weapons. If it continues its provocations, the UK presumably has nuclear weapons, which of course they do. Russian political scientist Sergei Karaganov, I guess is how you say it, who heads the Council for Foreign and Defense Policy. He is also the Dean of Faculty of World Economy and International Affairs at Moscow's Higher School of Economics and is a top advisor to Putin. He said that if Europe continues to provoke Russia, Russia will begin bombing Germany and the UK within 1 to 2 years and could use nuclear weapons. He described Europe as being anti-human and criticized Europe for its loss of respect for the family, love between men and women, seniors, patriotism, and more. He said that European leaders have lost their minds and have called them idiots. Well, they haven't lost their minds. It's a plan. They're bringing these third world, savages in on purpose to take over. And that's literally what's happening. I was mentioning earlier to a family member who said, friend of hers was in London, and I said, "Oh, you mean Londonistan?" Because that's what it is now. So this guy, Russian political scientist, said that Russia is really fighting Europe in Ukraine, and that Europe spreads hatred against Russians because Europe is really trying to take Russia's resources. So there's a embedded video here that's probably worth watching. And yes, it's interesting that the threats are becoming seemingly even more nuclear-based as far as what Russia is saying. So it's essentially threatening Germany and the UK if things continue on the escalated path that they're on now. That's not good. And then this has been a story that people have been talking about as well. Retired Argentine general, opposition party, and locals claim Israelis caused the Patagonia wildfires. And I'm sure many people have heard about these wildfires that are going on. Patagonia, if you don't know, is South America. Basically, Argentina primarily. Argentina and Chile is the area where we're talking here. And obviously, lots of trees. And yes, some people are accusing Israel of being responsible for these fires. So this is what this article is about. A large wildfire in Patagonia began on January 5th and was said to be intentional. Argentine retired military general Cesar Milani, alongside several key figures from the opposition, claimed that 2 Israelis used an IDF grenade to cause a wildfire in the Patagonia region of southern Argentina. In a post on the wildfires, Milani placed the blame on a foreign state pointed out by the locals themselves as responsible, alongside a picture of Argentine President Javier Milei waving an Israeli flag, which he does do that, and he goes and pets the wall too. We all know this. Opposition lawmaker Luis de Ilia posted this message: the Israelis are going around burning Patagonia. Milei announced the repeal of the law that bans the immediate sale of land affected by fire for agribusiness and real estate development. This kind of law exists in most countries as a necessary safeguard against business incentives to torch public lands. Although the repeal has not gone into effect yet, it recently passed committee in the Senate and continues to be a key element in the government's plan for a massive fire sale of Patagonian lands. A fire sale. Yes, no pun intended, I think. According to reports, 4 prior fires in Patagonia have been linked to the Israelis. What I'm not sure is what they gain by doing that, but we do know that oftentimes they are at the center of situations like this, so I don't know. There's further information here on Patagonia and the fires on needtoknow.news, so take a look at that one. I thought this one was interesting just because I don't really watch much TV. The only TV I watch are the local teams, local hockey teams games. And I do notice that there are a lot of sports betting commercials on. And so this, just from a personal standpoint, I have seen this increase. And this is the first article that I've really seen about this. Gambling now underpins the entire U.S. economy and is extremely addictive. How about that? Sports betting is what we're talking about here. The American Gaming Association reported a 23.6% rise in sports betting in the United States in 2024, with Americans placing $147.9 billion in sports bets. Gambling releases dopamine in the brain, whether the bettor wins or loses. The suicide rate for those with a gambling addiction is 12 times higher than that of any other addiction. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics report from 2019 to 24, the second fastest growing sector in America in terms of gross domestic product growth was gambling. That means that outside of AI data center GDP growth, the second largest growing thing in our economy is now gambling. Gambling companies have now overtaken motion picture revenue in terms of the amount that people are spending. It is by far the greater entertainment product now here in the United States. It emerged literally from a Supreme Court decision. There is zero oversight, and it is the source of massive addiction. It is beyond corrupt. Polymarket is a cryptocurrency-based prediction market. It allows individuals to place bets on future events such as economic indicators, weather patterns, awards, as well as political and legislative outcomes. Yeah, we mentioned Polymarket a few weeks ago when the Maduro situation happened and how people were making a lot of money on a particular bet that was saying that Maduro, I don't know if it said he was going to be captured, but it said that Venezuela was going to be invaded by January 31st. And of course that happened a couple weeks ago now. So yes, the sports bet world is not something that I have ever been a part of, but I didn't realize it was as big as it is. And, they do show commercials on TV for it all the time. So I would say that it's something that might rival the some of the money that Big Pharma gets too. So that's what you see on TV now in these end times. You see commercials for Big Pharma and all of their wares, all of their products that they push all the time, crazy drugs and medical procedures that no one actually needs, or not very many people certainly, and sports betting, I guess, or gambling. So that's where we are in these United States in the end times. So anyway, I just thought it was further proof that yes, indeed, we are in the end times. And if you want more proof, here's more. Bill Clinton under contempt of Congress after ignoring bipartisan subpoena. What did I say last week? Did we think actually that Bill and Hillary would go to this committee here and testify, or did we think that they would just ignore it and pretend like it never happened? Well, apparently Hillary's time for that is scheduled. But here's what this article says. Former President Bill Clinton did not appear for his scheduled deposition before the House Oversight Committee. Chairman James Comer said, the Oversight Committee will now initiate contempt of Congress proceedings against the former president for defying the law. But it's okay when he does it. I'm just adding that. It says Hillary Clinton is scheduled to appear, but it is unlikely that she will comply. Do we think that she will comply? No, of course not. I would say her of either one of the two of them, her especially, would not just show up. She's not going to comply. He didn't comply either. Jeffrey Epstein visited the White House 17 times while Bill Clinton was president, and Bill Clinton flew on Epstein's plane 27 times. In response to the growing pressure, Bill and Hillary posted a joint statement to their personal X accounts captioned, "This is not about right or left, it's about right and wrong." Comments were disabled on both posts. So they're saying here that they're the victims. They're being pursued by the Donald Trump administration, and therefore they were not going to comply. So yes, right and wrong. So they're right, and the Trump administration is wrong for pursuing contempt of Congress, which, by the way, people like Steve Bannon and others have been imprisoned for. Do we think Bill and Hillary will be imprisoned for contempt of Congress? I would love to see it, but I just can't imagine it. I would love to be wrong about that. Anyway, further information about all of that here. Not sure if it mentions who else it was. But yes, other people have been declared in contempt of Congress and were jailed. So anyway, there it is, and this kind of sums things up. Bill and Hillary above the law. Do you hear something? Just ignore it, she says. Yeah, that kind of sums things up, doesn't it? Yeah, okay, and then let's see here. So what I've done here, I'm going to go back to what I did a few weeks ago, and that is simply copy and paste the links here. Hopefully it won't take longer to do this. I don't think it will. But I think that my live stream will like this better instead of having 4,000 tabs open across the top of my screen. Things were getting bogged down quite a bit, pretty badly, and I think that was causing some other technical issues. So I thought we would do just a few tabs at a time instead of all of those. Probably, no kidding, probably at least 50, more like 75 tabs that we were doing before, because all of those tabs are using system memory and it's bogging down the computer. So anyway, hopefully this will be a little bit better. We're just doing one at a time here. Liberty Beacon article I found pulled up. Oligarchical globalism robbing us blind with lies and guilt. I thought this one was interesting. Yeah, Bill and Hillary, of course, and the Rockefeller Foundation, of course. But good old Charles. KC3 is in here too with Carney. Mark Carney. Says the editor of this article, more great 50,000 foot view from journalist Elizabeth Nixon. Grab a big coffee. She covers it all, not just Canada. Monstrous century-long theft by Canadian Indians in the Liberal Party of Canada, managed, strategized, and funded by oligarchs, staffed by hate-filled furies, or, as we used to call them, women. This week, the thing that cheered me up was the announcement of the grand jury impaneled on Monday intending a vast RICO case being constructed at Fort Pierce, Florida, against the titans of the Democrat Party, including the Clintons, Obama, and that genocidal maniac, commie Islamist, John Brennan. Yeah, John Brennan is, some people are saying that he's still basically running the FBI or CIA, whichever one he was. So, yes, stay behind networks, I guess. They think it will last for 10 years, and at the end of it, the Democrat Party will be seen for what it is, a cartel of the worst criminals ever born on this earth. We can add in the Liberal Party of Canada, the Labour Party in Britain, etc., etc. This and only this is the light at the end of this dark passage in the golden age of Trump. Really, once excavated, convicted, imprisoned, it will rain gold. Which, I'm not holding my breath, I don't know about you guys. Because they have stolen everything not nailed down, including the furniture. Yeah, in the case of the Clintons, they literally stole the furniture, too, when they were moving out of the White House. They did. Regarding the $1 trillion annual fraud via the Democrat Party's human crops, migrants, Indians, blacks, trans across the country, whistleblower/government employees are stepping up. So here's a Steve Bannon War Room embedded post here. It says, all this week, evidence of their crimes leaked out. Every blue state governor was up to his or her bloated neck in migrant thievery, knowing it was happening and allowing it anyway. Which that's what we've been hearing about nonstop in Minnesota and now other states as well, California and many others. The video investigation below is why the governor of Massachusetts is facing jail time. Pritzker and the ghastly creature in New York, Hochul, are next. The thievery in California is mind-blowing. The biggest of all grifts in the history of Titanic grifts. All that money earned by taxpayers stolen. Remember, not one house has been built in the Palisades a year after 5,000 were destroyed by fire. Yeah, but they're getting ready to build their smart cities, aren't they? Anyway, more information on here, and the full article is embedded with screenshots and all kinds of stuff. But, again, I'm not holding my breath. I don't know about you guys, but I just don't think these people are going to be held accountable. There's just nothing to show me otherwise at this point. Unfortunately, I would love to be wrong about that, of course, but does not seem to be the case, does it? All right. Liberty Beacon article, thousands rally in Greenland against U.S. annexation plans. Thousands. Well, there's not that many thousands even in Greenland, as far as I know. It's hard to take much of the Greenland issue seriously. We believe it's a done deal, that Greenland does somehow belong to the U.S. Meanwhile, the European picnic troops allegedly landed in Greenland in the dead of night, with NATO curiously missing in action. And Trump is threatening tariffs on EU countries who oppose the Greenland purchase. Yeah, Trump slaps 10% tariff on European countries opposing Greenland deal. That's a separate article here, but goes over to Zero Hedge. But yeah, that's what I've heard. 10% tariff. And now we have protests in Nuuk, N-U-U-K, I guess. That's how you pronounce that. Protests of nice-looking homie people. An estimated 20,000 people reside there, I guess, in Nuuk. So yeah, and we talked about all of the interesting positioning on the various types of maps last week on the show. I thought was got some good feedback on that too. Actually, people were delighted to see that that it was being reported that there were really two kinds of maps. We talked about the Mercator maps and the polar maps, both, and how when you're looking at the whole Greenland issue here, from the polar map point of view, it really is a strategic location, and that is most likely why Trump is going after Greenland so heavily at this point. But I don't know. There may be other issues involved too, but we kind of covered that last week. But I thought it was interesting that it says thousands were rallying against the U.S. annexation plans. So, again, we'll see where it goes. I don't know. Not really saying I'm supporting that at all. I'm just saying that it does appear that Trump is really serious about this. Trump slaps 10% tariff on 8 European countries opposing the Greenland deal. These countries who are playing this very dangerous game have put a level of risk in play that is not tenable or sustainable, warned Trump as he escalated his quest to acquire Greenland, threatening multiple European nations with tariffs up to 25% until his purchase of the Danish territory is achieved. I don't know why they couldn't work out some sort of a lease issue where, hey, let's just get us through this worst period of time here where we're closest to World War III and look at it again in a few years, which personally I don't think we'll all be here, but why don't they work out something like that instead of having to annex it or take it by force? Seems to me like that would make more sense. But he is the president of peace, after all, isn't he? 10% tariff on any and all goods sent to the United States of America will impact Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the UK, the Netherlands, and Finland, starting February 1st. So 10% tariff. And it says on June 1st, the tariff will be increased to 25%. So if you buy products from any of those places, which, chances are you do, at least to some degree, that's quite a few different countries, it may be affecting you. So just be aware. And here is the folks of the Netherlands here. The folks of Greenland in Nuuk, the capital of Greenland. Thousands of people, including the territory's prime minister, waved Greenlandic flags, chanted slogans, and sang traditional Inuit songs under light rain. Many wore caps with the words, "Make America Go Away," a riff on Trump's "Make America Great Again." Make America go away. So there you go. So that's their version of MAGA. Make America Go Away. And of course, Trump tweeted recently, just in the last few days, MIGA, M-I-G-A. And on the surface, it looked like he was saying, make Iran great again. But we all know what MIGA really means, don't we? But we can't say it because that would be anti-Semitic and just wrong and terrible. I mean, you can't even think it either. So just be aware. All right, and then let's see here. Liberty Beacon article, U.S. unchecked history of climate and weather manipulation change soon? Question mark. I don't think so. I mean, it might get worse, but that's just my opinion. For over a century, man has chased the ability to control the weather, from early rainmakers to secret military programs and geoengineering startups. It's real, documented, and impacting tens of millions of Americans right now. How about every single American, is what I would say. For over a century, man has chased the ability to control the weather. Yet, in most of America, there's almost no regulation. So I think this is, on the surface here, it appears, because they're talking about Rainmaker, these are some of the little, tiny systems that you would use, very small planes, like prop planes and so forth, almost like crop dusters, in order to change the local weather to something other than what it was going to be, which is apparently is what is getting a lot of the coverage on alternative media, and that is not what we're talking about here. There are global geoengineering programs that Mr. Dane talks about on GeoWatch, geoengineeringwatch.org, and that is what's really going on. These little Rainmaker type technologies are really just a distraction. Now, it does mention Dane in this article. It says geoengineering watchdog Dane Wigington claimed in an interview on July 9th the procedure steered or supercharged the Texas disaster, talking about the Rainmaker situation and the flood that they had there during the summer. There was nothing natural about this event, Wigington said. How bad does it have to get before people look up, wake up, stand up, and start to talk about all-out biological and chemical warfare taking place in our skies. Texas was a horrible event, and there are so many more like it happening all over the globe. Yeah. So, but it's not just a local technology gone wrong. It is a global technology. It is a global project, and all of the nations of the world are cooperating. So again, something we discuss and something we talk about all the time on GeoWatch. GeoWatch.com is the short URL to get there, but yes, geoengineeringwatch.org. Anyways, yes, and the argument here over contrails, chemtrails, and so forth. So, pretty interesting that the Liberty Beacon is covering that. Just wanted to mention that one. And then one more from this same site is, I think, good news. Enoch Burke. He's somebody that we mentioned before, but it's been quite a while on this broadcast. Enoch Burke released and returns to school premises for work. So he is an Irish teacher. Says, we've published a fair amount of Enoch Burke's history. See this latest post. When he was put in jail before Christmas, apparently indefinitely. And it says that there's an article here that he will remain in jail for Christmas, judge rules. Irish teacher Enoch Burke to remain in prison indefinitely until he purges his contempt, the judge said. Now he's been released as of this past Wednesday, but why exactly? Burke addressed this in his short speech to the press below, and Burke has had every intention of returning to his workplace to do the job that he feels he should never have been sacked from. So fired from, for you United States folks. He was fired, which he does. See the tweet below. The judge knows this, claims Burke, which leads him to believe that he is being set up judicially. Burke's constitutional rights to his beliefs which reject labeling minors with arbitrary pronouns under transgender ideology, has never been addressed by the courts. So yeah, I mean, if you don't know what happened here, the UK in Irish law, I guess, came down really hard on this guy because he would not use the proper pronouns when addressing someone at school. He refused to do that, and they jailed him for quite some time. He is here in handcuffs. But it's interesting that they released him, so it makes me kind of wonder if they are setting him up. He'll never bow to transgenderism. Enoch Burke returns to Wilson's Hospital School for second day. Fearless teacher Enoch Burke arrived outside Wilson's Hospital School in, however you pronounce this, for the second consecutive day on Friday. So he is back, apparently, at his teaching job. This development follows his ongoing legal dispute with the school and the Department of Education, stemming from his refusal to call a boy they, and subsequent suspension and court orders barring him from attending the premises. The case continues to attract significant public and media attention, not only in Ireland but around the world. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. Yes, the pronouns are what put this man in jail, but apparently they've righted this, at least for the moment. So I think that's good news. However, we'll just have to keep an eye on it because, it does seem highly suspicious for sure that they released him. So it doesn't say they dropped the charges, so I don't know. And then technocracy.news got a few articles from this site. Pax Silica Declaration signals the AI colonization of the world. America's AI Action Plan was released by the White House in July and was authored by Michael Kratsios, David Sachs, and Secretary of State Marco Rubio. As this person wrote, this was Tom Chapman, wrote, on July 23rd last year, the third pillar of the report extends the domestic technocratic agenda to the world by exporting American AI frameworks, hardware standards, and regulatory templates to allies. The plan seeks to cement a global empire of expert rule. Pax Silica is the actualization of Pillar 3. Any nation that signs the Pax Silica Declaration will receive all the state-of-the-art AI technology developed by Silicon Valley, but in doing so, they will be colonized by the United States. Note that Qatar and the UAE are among the first signers. That's from Patrick Wood, the editor of this website. So how about that? Pax Silica Agreement. That does not sound good. From oil fields to compute farms. Sounds like the U.S. is going to have a pretty heavy say in what these countries can and can't do. And it is interesting that they're going to receive all the state-of-the-art AI technology developed by Silicon Valley, but probably paid for, as far as these countries receiving it, it's probably being paid for by the American taxpayer, I'm thinking. But who knows? There's further information here on this Technocracy article, if you guys want to look at that one. And then the next one I pulled up was the second one, front and center on the site, Dangers of Implementing AI in Government Administration. So, yeah, this is something that I mentioned, I think, in the last week or two on the show as well. You know, I like the idea of what Doge was doing, but unfortunately where that leads you is, yes, it's uncovering all of this corruption that needs to be stopped, needs to be halted, but unfortunately it's also going to lead the way to AI taking over certain aspects of administration in the government. I think that's what this article is talking about. It says technocracy is taking over governments worldwide with AI, replacing the rule of law. The rule of law. And even in Russia, in America, Washington, D.C. has been invaded by arch technocrats who are bolting AI into government processes willy-nilly. Decision-making based on technology, hyper-technocracy, pays little attention to people's values and beliefs. All forms of human experience become merely behavioral data, transformed into products for analysis, forecasting, and management. So yeah, over the past year, there have been an increasing number of examples of AI being introduced into public administration. The U.S. government has begun using specialized services such as ChatGPT, Gov, and XAI for government. So developed specifically for government use, I guess. The Russian government declares the prioritization of AI implementation in its operations. This trend seems to have already become irreversible. However, technology cannot replace governance itself, as it fundamentally is built on values and circumstances that are not obvious to machines. The consequences of blindly trusting AI may be wrong decisions and a loss of public trust in an administration that fails to consider the interest of its citizens. AI in government administration, the problems, transparency of use, reinforcement of bias, the problem of accountability and responsibility, technical imperfections of AI, and so forth. Limits of trust, and then talking specifically about Russia. So, pretty wild. I don't think AI is going anywhere. It's being used more and more every single second. Final frontier, question mark. The stampede to put AI data centers in space. The race to space has begun with the likes of Google and Musk leading the way. You can be sure that others will follow. Last year, Google was scratching its head. This year, it has Project Suncatcher. There are plans to launch 2 test satellites in early 2027. My guess is that Musk will figure out a way to control his Starlink network with an AI data center in space, powered by solar panels. Will spaceships be launched with AI on board to explore the universe? Ask Elon. So, yeah, who knows where this is going, but it does seem like that would be a natural next step. Google recently unveiled Project Suncatcher, a research moonshot aiming to build a data center in space. The tech giant plans to use a constellation of solar-powered satellites, which would run on its own TPU chips and transmit data to one another via lasers. Google's TPU chips, TPU means tensor processing units, which are specifically designed for machine learning. They're already powering Google's latest AI models, and the main one called Gemini 3. Project Suncatcher will explore whether they can be adapted to survive radiation and temperature extremes and operate reliably in orbit. It aims to deploy 2 prototype satellites into low Earth orbit, some 400 miles above the Earth in early 2027. All right, and then Revolver article I came across I thought was worth mentioning. You can't blend cultures. Here is the data that proves it. Pretty interesting picture here. One of the great lies of modern globalism is the idea that cultural differences are shallow, cosmetic, and easily blended if everyone just tries hard enough. They aren't. Our differences really run deep, and when you ignore them, systems break, hate gets hotter, and division widens. We've already learned this the hard way, from diversity is our strength to the Bush nation-building nightmare. Mixing cultures is a recipe for disaster. When Western leaders tried to import Western values through nation-building in the Middle East, it caused massive backlash, resentment, and even more conflict. Why? Because Western values don't work in the Middle East. They have no business being there. The same mistake is now being repeated at home under the lie that our cultural and religious differences don't really matter. Globalists tell us that people are psychologically interchangeable and that blending everyone together is just fine. It's not. It's made everything louder, angrier, and more unstable. That was what Klaus Schwab talked about, wasn't it? An angrier world, as he talked about most recently. It says, look no further than Minneapolis, which is basically Mogadishu Jr. at this point. Americans have had their fill of this ungrateful pirate culture, and many want to see every last one of them deported because of it. Can you blame them? Look. Deport every Somali man, woman, and child, as Douglas Mackey has posted here. You can see the woman in the frame here, flipping off the camera. Pictures from North Minneapolis last night where rioters destroyed federal vehicles and stole firearms, ammunition, and sensitive documents inside, all captured on live streams. I mean, rioters that's like a nice word based on what these people are doing. I feel like terrorist is a more applicable word, don't you? They're terrorists. So why is this cultural breakdown showing up across the globe? We know people are different, but what is at the core of it? A recent post on X actually breaks down the data and shows exactly why this is happening. Basically, in a nutshell, the West is just better than all the rest. Using large-scale global data, the research shows that Western culture isn't just mildly different than the rest of the world, it's structurally unique, with a distinct combination of values that work together as a collective system, totally different from other countries and incompatible to boot. The research comes from the World Values Survey, which asked people across dozens of countries the same set of questions about family, authority, trust, individual freedom, cooperation, morality, and social norms. The point was to see how patterns of values group together when viewed as a system. See, just right there, just a little sidebar here, just right there, the fact that there is a survey where they're asking people across the world in all these different countries, you would think that third world countries and places like that wouldn't even bother to answer a survey, would they? So you really would have mostly just Western countries answering the survey. It would make sense to me that would be the case. I don't know. Okay, and then says, going back to the article here, it says the X post shows that Western countries cluster together in a very distinct psychological space of their own. According to the study, Western cultures tend to emphasize individual autonomy, cooperation based on family ties, tolerance for variation, and lower deference to authority all at the same time. Other cultures emphasize different combinations, often prioritizing hierarchy, kin loyalty, collective obligation, or social order instead. Then he gets into something called the multivariate rarity of Western psychology, we'll skip that for now, but it is here if you guys want to read through this. They have all the different clusters here of different people and how they answered the survey. The study is nothing short of a predictor of culture clash. It's a blueprint that explains why we're all at each other's throats. Countries are meant to protect their social fabric and culture and not sacrifice it to some abstract promise of collective good that will never show up. The idea that globalism could replace nationalism was always a fantasy, and the left knew it wouldn't hold. But once all that chaos was imported, reversing course became nearly impossible, and that was the plan all along. See, that's what I was saying earlier. It's not that the people that are running things are idiots or don't know what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing. It's a plan. It's a plan to bring down civilization so that they can rule over the ashes. That's the plan. So anyway, this is a Revolver.news article. I thought it was pretty interesting and something we've all been thinking and not necessarily been saying. So yes, blending cultures doesn't necessarily work, does it? Senator Kennedy says dead people were cashing government checks, and Senator Kennedy just killed the gravy train. So there's an embedded video here that we won't bother watching, but says John Kennedy of Louisiana said a bill he authored to stop federal benefit payments to deceased individuals is headed to Trump's desk, calling it a major step in addressing longstanding welfare fraud that has cost taxpayers billions of dollars. Again, this kind of gets, in my opinion, gets back to Doge a little bit, because Doge was, it was able to find out a lot of this stuff. Kennedy discussed the issue while outlining his years-long effort to prevent improper payments, particularly those made in the names of Americans who have died. He said that public reports of welfare fraud in Minnesota and other states have underscored the scope of the problem. I want to talk to you about the Ending Improper Payments to Deceased People Act. Boy, that's a mouthful, Kennedy said. Here's what I want to talk about. Many Louisianans read the stories about welfare fraud in Minnesota and frankly in other states, and it makes them nauseous. I feel the same way. That's what he said. Kennedy said that those cases motivated him to focus on fraud involving deceased beneficiaries, which he described as widespread and persistent. That's why I have been working for years, literally years, to target welfare fraud, especially by the fraudsters who conduct fraud in the name of deceased Americans. According to Kennedy, the scale of the problem became clear in 2023 when the federal government issued massive payments to people who were no longer alive. In 2023 alone, the federal government sent $1.3 billion, not million, billion dollars to dead people. Kennedy explained that the issue stemmed from a lack of coordination between federal agencies. Social Security Administration maintains a database of deceased Americans known as the Death Master File, which is updated when states report deaths. However, Kennedy said that the information was not being shared across the federal government. The Social Security Administration, which maintains a list of dead Americans known as the Death Master File, he said, was not being shared. He said investigations revealed that other agencies did not have access to the information. We found Social Security was not sharing this information, the names of the folks, the Death Master File, with the rest of the federal government, Kennedy said. So yes, the grift continues, doesn't it? Anyway, that is a LifeZet article. I thought that was pretty interesting. And something we all already knew about, isn't it? At least to some degree. Thought this was a weird one. Another Daily Mail article. The suicide pod for couples. Isn't that nice? The inventor of the Sarco death capsule reveals new euthanasia device that will see two people end their lives together. Yeah, we are definitely in the end times. September 2024, a 64-year-old woman became the first human to experience her last moments in a futuristic killing device known as the Sarco pod. S-A-R-C-O, Sarco pod. Amid a verdant forest in Switzerland's Schaffhausen region, she climbed inside the 3D printed capsule, pressed a button, took a deep breath before nitrogen flooded the vessel. The woman lost consciousness and died within a few minutes. But the controversial Sarcos pod first death would be its last, at least for now. Swiss police arrived, seized the pod, and arrested the only person present during the death, the late Dr. Florian Willett, co-president of the assisted suicide organization called The Last Resort. They also arrested his lawyers and a photographer who documented the woman's arrival. Wow. After police ruled out intentional homicide, all were released, but Philip Nitschke, the Sarcos Australian-born inventor and a pro-euthanasia activist, says he was surprised by what he perceived as the police's overzealousness. Yes, but the woman killed herself right in front of them. So, but it's talking about this double Dutch sarcopod, new and improved euthanasia capsule, now augmented with AI. Oh boy, you can have AI kill you. And it says it's a purpose built for couples who want to draw their last breaths side by side. I'm not suggesting everyone's going to race forward and say, boy, I really want to climb into one of those things, but some people do. The woman who tested the Sarco told the assisted dying campaigner before she died that she had read about the device and liked the idea. So here it is. So it's the double version instead of the single. Design of the double Dutch sarcopod. 3D printed by the 3D printer and is being assembled. You better hope the door doesn't close on him while he's putting it together. Anyway, that's pretty weird. Again, further proof we are living in the end times, if you ask me. Here's the single version, I guess. I was wanting to see how you go about getting one of these. If this is something like just average person could buy, or because it seems like it'd be really expensive. And let's just say they don't really need a return policy. So I don't know. The double Dutch 2-person euthanasia device. How about that? That is very strange. Thought you would want to know. You probably didn't, but there it is. All right, Gateway Pundit articles. We've got Trump reportedly puts over 1,000 active duty soldiers on standby for deployment to Minnesota after threatening to invoke the Insurrection Act. So we mentioned this earlier, and do we think he's going to hit the go button on this or not? I tend to think he probably will have to. Trump is looking at dropping the hammer on Minneapolis in the coming days after threatening to invoke the Insurrection Act last week. Again, it's been invoked by many presidents over the years. This would not be the end of the world if he does this. So for people who are worried, maybe people who have never heard of it before, but again, the last time it was invoked, as far as I know, was during the LA riots in 1990 or 91. So it's been a while. As the Washington Post reported, Trump administration has ordered roughly 1,500 active duty soldiers to be on standby. So, let's see here. Army's 11th Airborne Division, based in Alaska, which we mentioned that earlier. So, not really a whole lot of new news there, but that is a Gateway Pundit article, in case you guys want to look it up. And then make sure you're on the Substack list. We'll send all these links out in the email that I sent out on Tuesday. So you guys can look up these articles then, if that's easier, by copying and pasting the links. All right, and it says Trump administration records eighth straight month with 0 illegal border crossings, lowest number of border encounters in history. U.S. Customs and Border Protection recorded its 8th consecutive month with 0 illegal border crossings in December and historic lows in border encounters. With a 95% decrease in the first quarter border apprehensions from the Biden-era average. That's saying a lot, too. Because I don't know how many people were coming over per month. But depending on who you ask, 20 to 40 million people made their way here and got in during Biden's 4 years. So, whether you like Trump or not, I think that this, at least, perhaps this and the pardoning of the J6ers could be looked at as positive things that he's done. He has closed the border, and this seems to further prove that it is sticking. So that's good that the border is staying closed, I think. I'm all for people coming here legally, but not illegally, and I think that's the way pretty much everybody feels. Legally is totally fine. That's what this country was founded on, but illegally, no one who really cares about this country could say that that is right. The people who want illegals to come in and live here want to burn the country down. That seems to be the case. All right, another Gateway Pundit article. Podcaster calls for the arrest of Bill and Hillary for snubbing Congress on Epstein testimony. Lock them up. I agree. You can add me to the podcaster list. Conservative podcaster Vince, however you say his name, Coglinaze maybe, recently called for the arrest of Bill and Hillary. Well, heck, I've been calling for the arrest of Hillary for years. I've got a bumper sticker on my car that says Hillary for Prison 2016. So it's been at least that long. So he's just way behind the curve here. This is not an extreme position. Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro went to prison for doing the exact same thing the Clintons are doing now. That's the other guy. I knew there was someone else. Peter Navarro and Steve Bannon. Yeah, contempt of Congress. They went to prison for the exact same thing the Clintons are doing now, but it's okay when they do it, as I always say. How many times in recent years have we heard Democrats say that no one is above the law? Is it true, or are the Clintons above the law? Well, of course they are. They always have been. Daily Caller editorial director Vince Coglianese demanded the Clintons be jailed after they refused to testify in the congressional probe into deceased sex offender Jeffrey Epstein during a Wednesday episode of Vince. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer said the committee will vote on holding former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton in contempt of Congress after both declined, so apparently she has now too, to appear for the separately scheduled depositions, ABC News reported Wednesday. Coglianese, the podcaster, argued on his show that jailing the Clintons would serve as a vital deterrent against harming Americans. Yeah, lock them up. They just said F you to Congress, and now what? Now what happens? Come on, Republicans. And James Comer, perfectly good at that you're doing a contempt of Congress proceeding. Let's get this thing rolling. But every single one of you, from the Congress to the Justice Department, all the way through to the Trump administration, develop the testicular fortitude to actually do what's necessary to salvage our country. I agree. Because the thing is, just reverse the roles here for a second. If this was Trump that did this, he would have been jailed ages ago by the Democrats, right? There would never have been this argument. And they tried to jail him with a lot of made-up stuff. And this is real, and they're still walking because they're above the law. They're above reproach, apparently. Well, anyway, I would love to be wrong. Renee Good's family hires legal team that represented George Floyd's family. Yeah. As the world continues to grapple with the fallout from an ICE-related death in Minneapolis from January 7th, the victim's family is hiring some notable legal representation. The family of Renee Good, the victim in question, has retained the legal team that represented the family of George Floyd. Legal firm called Romanucci and Blandon, based in Chicago, confirmed that they would be representing Good's family, which includes her parents, siblings, the so-called wife, in an announcement on Wednesday. Interestingly enough, the legal firm began its announcement calling for peace, perhaps aware that roiling anti-immigration and customs enforcement riots are growing increasingly violent, which they definitely are. But despite those calls for peace, it didn't take the legal firm long to start vilifying ICE. The family of Renee Nicole Good is calling for peace. Peace not only across Minneapolis, a city in shock about her swift and cruel death at the hands of federal agents on a residential street. Yeah, well, she was asking for it. And if you've seen all of the footage, like many of us have, freely available, then you would understand that. But peace in cities across the country where Americans are increasingly and understandably distressed by this conduct of the federal government that defies our constitutional values and sows chaos in our communities. Yes, that's the terrorists who are doing that, not ICE. What happened to Renee is wrong. Contrary to established policing practices and procedures, it should never have happened in today's America. Yeah, well, it did, and she, FAFO'd, as they say. And she did. Of note, there's ample video footage suggesting that Good was not blameless in the tragic incident. The announcement continued, "Be good." That's a clear message from her family as Renee's wish to the world. These words also encompass the mission of their attorneys, who they have retained to not only seek accountability for her death, but also to honor her life with progress toward a kinder and more civil America. They do not want her used as a political pawn, but rather as an agent for peace. Yeah, well, I think it's too late for that, don't you? The legal firm also appeared to criticize the current investigation into the shooting. So anyway, not that surprising, but yes, Sir George Floyd's attorneys thought this one was not that surprising. I think she's vying for a position in the Venezuelan government, perhaps the leader. Just in, Maria Corina Machado gives her Nobel Peace Prize to Trump. Venezuelan opposition leader Machado made her first appearance at the White House to meet with Trump on Thursday, where she gave him her Nobel Peace Prize. How about that? I don't think the Nobel Peace Prize folks like that too much. Machado confirmed to reporters as she departed the White House that she presented him the prize, likening it to Continental Army General Lafayette's gift to Venezuelan liberator Simon Bolivar, who freed Venezuela from Spanish rule in the 1800s. The medal with George Washington's face on it was given by General Lafayette as a sign of the brotherhood between the United States, the people of the U.S., and the people of Venezuela for their fight for freedom against tyranny. After 200 years in history, the people of Bolivar are giving back to the heir of Washington a medal, in this case, a medal of a Nobel Peace Prize, and a recognition for his unique commitment with our freedom. So here's the video. I presented the President of the United States the medal of the Nobel Peace Prize. And then she told him that story. It can be recalled that the Nobel Committee snubbed President Trump and awarded Machado with the prize due to her tireless work promoting democratic rights for the people of Venezuela and for her struggle to achieve a just and peaceful transition from dictatorship to democracy. But it was Trump who ordered the operation to arrest Maduro and create the pathway to transition to democratic rule in Venezuela earlier this month. Yeah, we'll see if that happens. I'm looking to see what the Nobel folks had to say about it. Close-up of the actual award, I guess. So she had this whole thing made up, I guess, and framed and put the medal in the middle. There's no further information about it on here, but I'm pretty sure I saw that somewhere. Feel free to look that up if you want. But yeah, I don't think the Nobel Peace Prize people were too excited that she gave her award away to someone else. Because one other article I found, I don't know that I bookmarked it, but it was saying that they're sharing the Peace Prize. It may have been in that article, but it looks to me like, according to this, she actually gave it to him. So I don't think they're sharing it at all. Pretty wild. U-turn. Starmer ditches horrible policies. Failing PM abandons mandatory digital ID. Ending jury trial for minor offenses. Under 16 social media ban. And attack on pubs. So if true, this would be pretty interesting. The ability to change one's mind is a sign of intelligence, but to be always flip-flopping an issue on issues is lame. Britons are asking themselves, can the failing Prime Minister Keir Starmer hold on to any policies? Labour MPs are bracing for more chaotic U-turns today, and now even cabinet ministers are making fun of his inability to stick to policies. But here's the kicker. Since so many of his leftist government's policies are so bad, some wavering ends up being a net positive for the country. So according to this tweet here, huge victory for British farmers. Keir Starmer backs down on the inheritance tax. Farmers have forced the government to do massive U-turn. A fantastic result for the farmers who protest in London. Protest works. Keep fighting. We will take back our country. That's good news, but it makes you wonder for how long, because often what they'll do is they'll just, wait out the mobs of protesters and everybody goes home, and then they do it again. They try it again. After Starmer abandoned a mandatory digital ID, more U-turns are expected on curbing jury trials, under 16 social media ban, and business rates assault on hospitality. So yes, Keir Starmer, the right-hand man of KC3. So he's doing some U-turns here. I think that's good news. We'll see what actually happens. It could just be to get the heat off of him temporarily. And then they'll go right back to it as soon as that kind of dies down a little. That's my thinking. That's usually the way things work. Gateway Pundit article. Lance Twiggs' family speaks out for the first time since the Kirk assassination, reveals Twiggs' location. So yes, Lance Twiggs. His family spoke out for the first time since the assassination of Charlie. Police arrested 22-year-old Tyler Robinson, charged him with 7 counts, including aggravated murder. It was later revealed that Kirk assassin Tyler Robinson lived with his transgender partner, a male to female trans named Lance Luna Twiggs. The FBI used Robinson's texts with his transgender partner to solidify that Robinson was the assassin. Well, you could say they used text, yes, but was it even real? Most people said it sure didn't seem like it. Lance Twiggs has not been charged with any crime. However, he seemingly disappeared shortly after Robinson was arrested. Utah authorities previously released the text exchange between Robinson and Twiggs shortly after the assassination. He was reportedly under FBI protection for the first few weeks after the assassination. Twiggs' family members said that he moved out of state for a while, but he's back home with his family in St. George. So there you go. So he left for a little while, but he's back now. And note, they're calling him he. He's back. This is the quote. The family member said, he's back. So they know he's a guy. He's not a furry. He's not a girl. He's a guy. Always will be. Even 100 years from now, when they dig up his bones, they're going to say, oh, that was a guy. Robinson was charged with 7 counts here. Aggravated murder, felony reckless discharge of a firearm causing bodily injury, felony obstruction of justice for hiding a firearm, felony obstruction of justice for discarding the clothing he wore during the shooting, witness tampering for asking roommate to delete incriminating messages, witness tampering for demanding trans roommate stay silent and not speak to the police, and commission of a violent offense in the presence of a child. Those are the 7 counts that Robinson is facing, if you didn't know. But yeah, a little update on Lance Twiggs. All right, and then we got an update here on Miss Tina Peters. Colorado appellate court judges eviscerate Colorado's case against Tina Peters in appeals hearing. Yesterday was a good day for former Mesa County Clerk Tina Peters, whose appeal was heard in Colorado by a 3-judge appellate panel. It is interesting. I heard some clips of it. It was really good. Peters was sentenced to a 9-year sentence in October 2024 for, quote, crimes committed while upholding her obligations under federal law to secure election records. The that Peters was convicted of include 3 counts of attempting to influence a public servant, which bureaucrats from Secretary of State's office, 1 count of conspiracy to commit criminal impersonation, first-degree official misconduct, violation of duty, and failure to comply with an order or requirement from the Secretary of State. The appeal was based on core legal and constitutional errors, according to a press release from Peters's legal team. Those claims were federal immunity, supremacy clause, insufficient evidence, denial of due process, unconstitutional sentencing, and pardon jurisdiction. The hearing started off shaky with Peters' attorney, John Case, being questioned about the supremacy clause claim. Case argued that it was Peters' obligation to preserve and investigate the election records under 52 U.S. Code 20701. However, the panel pushed back and questioned whether investigate element was an obligation under the statute. Case argued, again, John Case, argued that the obligation is to preserve and protect, that the statute does not prohibit her from investigation and from investigating the election. The fireworks, however, began when the state presented its arguments. The significant issues that the judges probed revolved around a misstated charge, unjust sentencing, and the trial judge's restrictions on Peters presenting a complete defense. And this is a quote here. Is it your position that a person can still be convicted of a crime with which they were never charged and with which the jury was never instructed as long as the evidence is sufficient? Asked Judge Ted Tao. Yes, I think that's what the case law indicates, responded Senior Assistant Attorney General Lisa Michaels. It was one word, might, and it was already. Michaels began before being interrupted by another judge, Judge Craig Welling. Yeah, but that one word distinguishes it from a felony to a misdemeanor, Judge Welling stated. So yeah, there was some back and forth here. It is interesting, though, and the video is embedded here. Tina Peters' appeal clip, one of the charges was completely misrepresented to the jury as a felony when it was actually the verbiage of a misdemeanor. So I think that's one of the main sticking points here. This could potentially lead to a mistrial of the whole case, which of course it was. She was being railroaded. They wanted to get her into prison as quickly as possible, and that's what they did. So another important argument the judges probed was Judge Matthew Barrett's harsh remarks during sentencing of Tina. Judge Barrett called Peters a charlatan and snake oil salesman. You are no hero. You abused your position. This is what the judge told Tina Peters. And you're a charlatan who used and is still using your prior position in office to peddle a snake oil that's been proven to be junk time and time again. Judge Barrett opined during Peters' sentencing in October 2024. Wow. And then it says Judge Lino Lipinski Diorlov, after citing Judge Barrett's remarks, asked, didn't he consider uncharged conduct as he referred to snake oil, etc.? Wasn't he considering uncharged conduct in sentencing her, and wasn't that an error? Yeah, so they should really look at this whole thing again, and the judge that sentenced her for sure. So there's quite a bit here, including the 3-judge panel right here, and more of the video. So pretty interesting, and let's hope and pray that Miss Tina Peters gets out soon, because it appears to me that Trump is going to do nothing to get her out. What I've said all along is they should federalize the prison and go in and get her out. But they've not done that. All right, Headline USA article, DOJ investigating the Minnesota Governor Tim Tampon Walz, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey. A reminder to all those in Minnesota that no one is above the law, he says, except for himself and Mayor Jacob Frey. They are. Justice Department is investigating whether Walz and Fry have impeded federal immigration enforcement through public statements that they have made, according to the AP. The investigation, which both Walz and Fry say was a bullying tactic meant to threaten political opposition. Yeah, anytime you are criticized, that's what they go to. Oh, you're just bullying. No, it's legitimate criticism. CBS News first reported the investigation. The investigation comes during a weeks-long immigration crackdown in Minneapolis and St. Paul that the Department of Homeland Security has called its largest recent illegal immigration enforcement operation, resulting in more than 2,500 arrests. The operation has become more confrontational since the fatal shooting of Renee Good, with agents pulling people from cars and homes and frequently being confronted by angry bystanders demanding they leave. In response to reports of the investigation, Walz said in a statement, 2 days ago it was Elissa Slotkin, last week it was Jerome Powell, before that Mark Kelly. Weaponizing the justice system and threatening political opponents is a dangerous authoritarian tactic. So says Tim Tampon Walz here. Yeah, and then, we'll see. Fry's described the investigation as an attempt to intimidate him for standing up for Minneapolis and our local law enforcement. Yeah, that's all he's got. Anyway, we'll see where it goes. Who knows? Top U.S. court to review suit against German chemicals giant Bayer and Monsanto. The $1.25 million case centers on Bayer's Roundup herbicide, or as they say, some places herbicide, which the plaintiff has claimed caused his blood cancer. U.S. Supreme Court will hear an appeal by German chemical company Bayer on a Roundup-related case in which a man was awarded $1.25 million claiming the herbicide gave him blood cancer. The court made the announcement regarding Monsanto Company versus Durnell in a statement on Friday, with the verdict expected by July. Bayer is currently facing thousands of similar lawsuits. Thousands. Roundup originally belonged to the now-defunct American agrochemical and agricultural biotech company Monsanto, which was purchased by Bayer in 2018. I didn't realize they weren't using the name anymore, though, did you? At the heart of the case is whether Bayer and other manufacturers should be held liable if they comply with the EPA's rulings on product warnings, which, while still ruling afoul of state laws requiring warnings on goods that may be carcinogenic. Bayer argues that the EPA has determined that glyphosate, the main component of the controversial herbicide, is not likely to be carcinogenic to humans, and approved Roundup labels without cancer warnings. In a statement on Friday, Bayer CEO Bill Anderson said that it is time for the U.S. legal system to establish that companies should not be punished under state laws for complying with federal warning label requirements. Well, they did do that, but they also must have surely bought off somebody at the federal label warning organization, in other words, the EPA, because they were allowed to produce their chemicals anyway, which is why all these millions of people have been hurt. And we all continue to be hurt to some degree because we're all consuming food that has been sprayed with Roundup. It's pretty hard to get away from, unfortunately. In 2023, a court in the state of Missouri awarded John Durnell, I remember this when this happened, $1.25 million on a failure to warn claim, but struck down all the other claims and declined to award punitive damages. The chemical company subsequently filed several appeals and eventually petitioned the U.S. Supreme Court to review the case in April last year. Faced with an avalanche of Roundup-related lawsuits following the acquisition of Monsanto, it's amazing that they were able to sell the company based on all this, but I guess they did. Bayer set aside more than $10 billion to pay potential damages in 2020, with that figure swelling even further in the intervening years. In 2015, the World Health Organization's International Agency for Research on Cancer concluded that glyphosate could probably, quote, probably cause cancer. Well, they are the World Homicide Organization for a reason, and it's pretty amazing. It's like a pharma company, where it's just the cost of doing business, where they put out a product that it intentionally has all these negative things, side effects, whatever you want to call it. And knowing that if they just have a few $1 billion set aside to cover the people who manage to get through with their lawsuits, get through the system with their lawsuits, and paying them off and shutting them up, that it's the cost of doing business, and they just continue to hurt people over and over. It sounds like Bayer buying Monsanto was the same type of thing. They just set aside more than $10 billion to pay for potential damages. And so they knew it was coming, and they bought it anyway because they knew the investment would make them billions or multiple billions, I suppose. Trillions, who knows how much. Yeah, pretty wild. Susan says Monsanto equals monstrous in most minds around the world. I believe Monsanto was always a stepchild of Bayer from the onset. That could be. I don't know. Anyways, Information Liberation. Got a couple of articles from that site. Mike Pompeo, we need to make sure the history books don't write about the victims of Gaza. That sounds about right, doesn't it? Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo told the Zionist Miriam Institute on Tuesday that we need to make sure the history books don't write about the victims of Gaza. We need to make sure that the story of October 7th is told properly, so that when the history books write this, they don't write about the victims of Gaza, Pompeo said. The Zionist crowd erupted in applause. Here's the clip here if you want to watch it. It should be a little more precise. There were victims in Gaza, right? ? It's true. There are civilian casualties in every war that's ever been fought, but the victims were the people of the nation state of Israel, he continues. It sounds like he's talking about blotting out the memory of Amalek. The event's host, IDF veteran Benjamin Anthony, also asked Pompeo if the GOP can stamp out anti-Israel voices like Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and the like, as their Israel-critical views are making Zionists feel, quote, uneasy. I am worried about it because it has gained traction, Pompeo responded, most disconcertingly among young people. Yeah, they've completely lost the support of young people. Though such views are still small, Pompeo said, and his worry is that it will catch fire, and that these embers will grow into something that is bigger. I think it's too late for that. It has already caught fire. People know. People are on to the whole Zionist Israel thing, and they really dislike it. So anyway, yeah, Mike Pompeo still at it. So yes, that is an Information Liberation piece, and then got one more from there as well. Similar type of situation. ADL helping Ted Cruz and Ben Shapiro take down Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes, CEO suggests. ADL CEO Jonathan Greenblatt suggested in a now deleted interview that behind the scenes he is helping Senator Ted Cruz take down Tucker Carlson and helping Ben Shapiro, or as I call him, BS, take down Nick Fuentes. I need people on the right to take down Tucker Carlson, so I'm trying to help Ted Cruz, Greenblatt revealed. I need people on the right to take down Nick Fuentes, so I'm trying to help people like Ben Shapiro, Greenblatt told David Wolpe, a rabbi, at a gathering at Sinai Temple in West LA on Saturday. He also named Hassan Piker as one of his targets and said that the ADL is doing the same thing on the left. So lovely. It's all about suppression of any speech that disagrees with Israel. If you criticize Israel, you don't get to speak. if you have positive things to say about Israel, then yeah, you can talk all you want. So there's a lot of clips here, I guess. Even though it got deleted, people still grabbed it and made clips out of it. So it's there. Forever alive. All right, and then Armstrong Economics, we've got a new one here from them. Martin Armstrong, about Mark Carney. Carney comments on New World Order. Yeah, this was in one of the video clips that I have prepared for this week. This actual quote. PM Carney pre-election 2025, our biggest security threat is China. That was what he said before he got elected. And then now he's saying our partnership with China sets us up well for the New World Order. I think it's safe to say he's done an about-face. The world is still determining what that world is supposed to be. So here's a video here embedded, but yes, he is definitely done an about-face here. Our partnership with China sets us up well for the New World Order. So he just comes right out and says it. All right, and then I've been looking at this site a little bit lately. I think it's kind of interesting. RudeVulture.com. We'll just look at some of the headlines, see if anything jumps out here. TikTok payouts are tanking following a change in ownership. So that's interesting. They were recently transitioned here from ByteDance to U.S. companies. Content creators across TikTok are abandoning the platform's creator rewards program in droves after experiencing dramatic payment cuts that many attribute to the app's recent ownership transition from ByteDance to U.S. companies. Creators who once earned thousands of dollars monthly from their content are now reporting payments that amount to mere pennies, regardless of the number of views they're getting. Wow. And then there's this one, which I think is totally ridiculous. You can now pay $1 million for a future hotel stay on the moon. There you go. How are you going to get there, though? That's what I wonder. Yeah, the final frontier just became available for booking, though you'll need deep pockets and plenty of patience. Yeah, they're going to have to figure out that little problem with the Van Allen radiation belts first. Seems to me. Maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, and then let's see here. Canadian lawmaker blames MAGA religious extremism as government moves to criminalize Bible verses. Yeah, they're getting ready to start criminalizing Bible verses in Canada. A Canadian Liberal MP has sparked widespread alarm by claiming that MAGA religious extremism is responsible for the public backlash against federal government's push to criminalize portions of the Bible under Canada's increasingly Orwellian hate speech regime. It says the comments came as the Liberal government advances a bill called C9, legislation that critics warn could make it a criminal offense to publicly quote or read certain passages of Scripture deemed offensive by the state. The proposal has ignited backlash from conservatives, faith leaders, and civil liberties advocates who say the bill represents a direct assault on religious freedom in Canada. Don't you think that's the whole purpose? That's why they're doing it. To shut up Christians. That's what they're trying to do. And that's what they're going to eventually pass. C9, formerly known as the Combating Hate Act. They always give it a name like that, like it's so wonderful and it's going to solve all these problems. Conservative MPs warn that the legislation could criminalize Bible teachings on homosexuality and allow the prosecution of individuals who quote Scripture in good faith. Again, I think that's the whole purpose. So yeah, that's where they're going in Canada, which of course is a Commonwealth country of KC3. And then there's this one. This is another, surely it has to be the End Times sort of article. Really sad. 11-year-old boy murders father for taking away his Nintendo. quote, "Daddy's dead." Right here. 11-year-old boy facing homicide charges after allegedly shooting and killing his adoptive father while he slept, following a dispute over a Nintendo Switch, according to Pennsylvania police in court documents. Authorities say Douglas Dietz, 42, was shot in the head early Tuesday morning inside his home on the borough of Duncannon. The incident occurred just hours after the family celebrated the boy's birthday. Wow. Police were dispatched to the residence on South Market Street at approximately 3:20 a.m., where they found Dietz dead in his bedroom. His wife told investigators that she had been sleeping beside her husband when she was awakened by a loud noise. She said that she then heard liquid dripping, and after turning on the light, realized it was blood. She also reported smelling a strong odor like fireworks, which police said is consistent with a recently fired gun. No kidding. According to investigators, the parents' bedroom was connected to the boy's bedroom through a shared closet. The boy, identified as Clayton, allegedly entered the room and told his mother, "Daddy's dead." Police also reported that the child later said, "I killed Daddy." This is so sad. During questioning, police said that the boy admitted to the shooting. According to the police report, he told the investigators that although the family had enjoyed his birthday celebration, he became angry when his father told him to go to bed. He admitted that he had someone in mind whom he was going to shoot, whom he identified as his father. The boy allegedly told police he found the key to the family's gun safe while searching for his Nintendo Switch, which had previously been taken away. Then he opened the safe, removed the firearm, and walked into his parents' bedroom. He pulled the hammer back and fired the gun at his father. Just like that. So sad. And this is all neighbors saying how nice the family all were and everything. That's really sad. So the mother here is going to lose two people. I mean, because they'll probably, it says the case has raised renewed questions about firearm storage, parental discipline, and juvenile criminal responsibility. Because he was adopted, they will probably take him away, and of course, the father is no longer in the picture either. So wow, so sad, unbelievable. Further proof we're in the end times, if you ask me. All right, and then let's see here. The next one I have pulled up is actually just a post here from Daily Crow. I wanted to mention this just because I thought it was, unfortunately, pretty descriptive as to what's going on in Australia. Australia, the Combating Anti-Semitism, Hate, and Extremism Bill 2026 has been published, and it is worse than you think. It's retroactive. People can be charged for hate, quote unquote, that never resulted in physical action from something said prior to the passing of this anti-Semitism law. What is anti-Semitism? Question mark. Anything Jews don't like. Strip away everything else in this bill, and it's an excuse to arrest white people for literally anything. Like Joel Davis and Thomas Sowell, and scare other whites from joining any nationalist movement opposing immigration. Ahead of the bill's release, the National Socialist Network announced it was disbanding. In a statement posted on Telegram, the group said it was shutting down in anticipation of legislation that would allow the government to ban organizations retroactively for acts such as, quote, Nazi salutes. The group described the proposed laws as some of the most draconian in the West that we've ever seen. So this is the screenshot here. Combating Anti-Semitism, Hate, and Extremism Bill 2026. And they've got this highlighted here. Conduct constituting a hate crime may have occurred before commencement. in subsection, a reference to conduct constituting a hate crime includes a reference to conduct constituting a hate crime that occurred before subsection 1 commences. Wow. Before. So that's what the wonderful country of Australia is planning. That's what they're doing. Okay, and now this one, again, further proof. Now this is apparently, according to this, and I wanted to mention this, yes, this is bad news, but apparently this video is from 2022, but it is information apparently that is worth repeating just because there is a disturbing trend happening in France, according to this. Migrants are reportedly targeting elderly French citizens and drawing them in close to vehicles. And then the horror unfolds, it says. The victims are restrained. So they get an older person to come over to the car and they grab them. They grab their hands, their arms. And then the car accelerates, moving faster and faster, more recklessly with each passing moment. Inevitably, their legs give out and they collapse onto the asphalt. Is it sheer contempt or mere boredom? A similarly alarming pattern is appearing in Germany. According to reports, migrants are secretly offering poisoned alcohol to homeless and intoxicated individuals. A silent and cruel attack aimed at society's most vulnerable. So the video is here, and I don't think I'll bother playing it. Besides, I don't have the audio patched in anyway, but they're just laughing it up. They grab this old guy's arms, and he's probably, 80s probably, and they just slowly accelerate the car, and they're holding on to him the whole time. And then of course he just goes, just a few yards, and his legs give out and he falls down into the pavement, and they just drive off. So just more, just utter cruelty that people are doing over there. Migrants are doing in particular in France and in Germany. Similar things in Germany, I guess. Anyway, I found that and just thought I would repeat it just because it's not good and really not that surprising. A clash of the cultures, as we said earlier. And then I mentioned Scott Adams' story a little bit. I think it was last week. Well, he has now passed away. Comic strip creator of Dilbert and author died from complications with prostate cancer after entering hospice. And he was very upfront about saying that it was the CV-19 jab that really accelerated his issues, but yeah, he did pass away. I think the main part of the story here was that he did accept Christ, according to what we talked about. I think it was last week. It says Adams' ex-wife shared the news of his passing on his Coffee with Scott Adams live stream on Tuesday, after previously revealing he had entered hospice due to prostate cancer. Yeah, so many of my Christian friends have asked me to find Jesus before I go. I'm not a believer, but I have to admit the risk-reward calculation for doing so looks so attractive to me, so here I go. His message stated in his trademark wit, I accept Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior and look forward to spending an eternity with him, is what Scott wrote. The part about me not being a believer should be quite quickly resolved. If I wake up in heaven, I won't need any more convincing than that. I hope I'm still qualified for entry into heaven. So anyway. So yes, Scott Adams has made the jump to hyperspace, as we say. All right, now this one, got a lot of articles tonight. This is on Threadreader app, and the little blurb I had here was Australia Combating Anti-Semitism, Hate and Extremism Bill 2026 has been published and it's worse than you think. Well, that is exactly what we talked about before. However, this article has more of the actual bill in it. So if you want to look at this further, it does have more information in it. So we won't go into that anymore tonight, but it is there if you guys want to look into that further. It was on Threadreader app, which is connected to X. All right, and I thought this one was weird. Randy Fine, who we've talked about on this show before because he's ridiculously pro-Israel on everything, and Israel first is a stance that he's taken. Never mind the fact that he is a U.S. congressman. But this says, Randy Fine introduces Greenland Annexation and Statehood Act to take over the territory by any means necessary. And keep in mind, he is an Israel firster. And when they say any means necessary, they mean it. He's not joking. Representative Randy Fine, Republican from Florida, introduced a bill on Monday to give Trump authorization to take such steps as may be necessary, quote unquote, to annex the Danish territory of Greenland. And here's what he said, and this is all real. This is here's an embedded tweet here, and you can follow it up by going to his actual X account and reading all about it. Says, huge news today. I'm proud to introduce the Greenland Annexation and Statehood Act, a bill that allows the president to find the means necessary to bring Greenland into the Union, announced Fine in his social media post, which featured a mock-up image of a Trump Tower in Greenland. He continued, let me be clear, our adversaries are trying to establish a foothold in the Arctic, and we can't let that happen. By acquiring Greenland, we would prevent our adversaries from controlling the Arctic region and secure our northern flank from Russia and China, which, again, we looked at that last week as far as the polar maps versus the Mercator maps. So they're not wrong about that, but it says if passed, the bill would give Trump explicit congressional authorization for the annexation of Greenland by any means necessary. So there you go. So thanks to Randy Fine. Lovely, huh? Such a champion of freedom. All right, now we've got this one here. Next article, AOL article. I didn't even know AOL was still around, but I guess so. Rand Paul tells Joe Rogan and he can't get the Trump Department of Justice to do anything about his Fauci criminal referral. Does this surprise us? Republican Kentucky Senator Rand Paul expressed frustration about Trump's Justice Department. I think everybody's frustrated about that. Not acting on his criminal referral for Dr. Anthony Fauci on a Tuesday episode of the Joe Rogan Experience. Paul renewed his 2023 criminal referral to the DOJ on July 14th after details emerged about Fauci receiving a pardon via an auto pen used by Biden's staff. He told Rogan on his podcast that Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr. has assisted him, but that the DOJ has not. Not that surprising, is it? Here's the clip here. You need to see it. Under the Biden administration, I sent criminal referrals to Fauci to former Attorney General Merrick Garland twice. I sent them evidence that he had lied to Congress, which was a felony, Rand Paul said. They just ignored me. I've been working with Bobby Kennedy. He's been very helpful on this. I have a good relationship with him. He's given us a lot of information, and we've looked at the communications. And in Anthony Fauci's communications, we now have evidence that he was telling people like Francis Collins, more about him in a minute, read this and destroy it, quote unquote. Well, you can't do that, he continued. The executive branch, when they communicate, they're required to keep their communications, and they're required to do it on government devices. So we have this evidence, and I've summarized it again in a criminal referral to Trump's Attorney General, and we still haven't gotten action. I say fire Pam Blondie. Start with that. And probably most people at the DOJ. Anyway, just wanted to mention it and note that he is saying that Bobby Kennedy is helping him, but it's getting nowhere fast. All right, next article. It's on a website with a crazy name, but I've mentioned it before a long time ago. The Giza Death Star is the name of this website. Egypt, Europe, digital ID, and civil death. And it says beast system. Sometimes it becomes very difficult to select which articles and stories to blog about, and on rare occasions it becomes necessary to blog about several articles all at once because they're all related so deeply, and that to cover one misses the implications disclosed by another. That's the case today with the following articles. For what we have, firstly, an article on the revival of civil death in the EU, another on a uniquely Talmudic bit of casuistry from an Israeli billionaire's proposal to limit free speech in order to protect it. Yet another on the Egyptian version of digital ID, which allows one's religion to be included. And finally, an article on whether or not Zionist pastors, quote unquote, i.e. pastors of evangelical churches that espouse dispensationalist theology, should be registered as foreign agents. Here are the articles with commentary to follow. So how about that for a collection? So there's quite a bit here. Mostly I just wanted to mention that that's what this article was about. But yeah, you'll note one thing about all the articles. They are all swipes at freedom. At the freedom of speech, freedom of privacy, freedom of religion, with the punishment being advocated in the European Union of the return of civil death, the state-sanctioned attempt to deny property, identity, and participation in society, a literal internal exile where one is condemned to a life of poverty, with more laws on the books penalizing anyone helping such individuals. In the case of Egypt, a digital ID which identifies one's religion, enabling the government, if it wishes, to persecute a particular religion, a literal godsend if you intend on persecuting Christians, or in the case of evangelicism, to persecute those who do not accept nor follow dispensationalist theology. Or conversely, as yet another article notes, to register people holding particular theological views as foreign agents. Now I said, stay tuned for more on Francis Collins. That's who this article is about. It says, the most evil man in evangelicalism and those who platformed him. C.S. Lewis quote here, of all the passions, the passion for the inner ring is most skillful in making a man who is not yet a very bad man do very bad things. C.S. Lewis quote, and here's Francis Collins. Wow. Yeah, he's quite the Christian, isn't he? Responsible single-handedly for millions of deaths worldwide. On August 17th, 2009, Barack Obama appointed Francis Collins as the director of the National Institutes of Health, lauded as a hero of the faith because he professed belief in God while leading the Human Genome Project. Some years prior, Collins became a link between Christian institutions and the scientific establishment. An association with Collins meant a pastor couldn't be accused of being some backward-thinking fundamentalist. Collins's image became synonymous with a more nuanced, reasonable faith, perhaps even a faith that was academically robust. A year after taking the helm of the NIH, again the National Institutes of Health, Collins reportedly believed that it is not possible scientifically to settle precisely when life begins. In fact, before taking over the NIH, Collins had already praised eugenic abortions. When one prenatally tests the baby to see if they're fit or unfit and disposes of them if they aren't up to scruff, as something people in our current society are in circumstance of being able to take advantage of, and something we have decided as a society needs to be defended. And shortly after his confirmation at the NIH, Collins said that establishing a new human embryonic stem cell registry was one of his highest priorities. If Collins was indeed Mephistopheles' vessel, the demon wasted no time in devouring his favorite kind of child. Very small ones. After all, there are no embryonic stem cells without dead babies. So anyway, this is pulling apart the whole Francis Collins mystique and how he is connected to death and murder. The most evil man in evangelicalism and those who platformed him. Looks like it started with Barack Insane Obama, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, not good. All right. I thought this one was pretty wild. Trump pauses 50-year mortgage plan, eyes 401ks for down payments. And what I have here is Trump pauses 50-year mortgage to ensure participants can liquidate their entire 401k to embrace the half century of debt slavery. Lovely, huh? So they're going to go after 401ks to help with the 50-year mortgage plan. The White House is reportedly preparing an executive order to use funds from 401ks or from 529 accounts for down payments. So yeah, how about that? They're going to rob the 401ks to make sure it's nice and easy to become a debt slave for 50 years. Which we're not going to be here, but the point is they're trying it. So I just wanted to mention that. It's on Housing Wire, housingwire.com. All right, and then this one I kind of touched on earlier in the broadcast. This is the, I guess the full video embedded here too. Breaking news, Russia will nuke Germany and the UK if Ukraine war continues, warns top Putin advisor. So this is on TuckerCarlson.com, actually. So this is him talking about that. Top Putin advisor warns that if the Ukraine war continues like this, that Russia will nuke Germany and the UK. So there's not much other information on here. It's mostly in video form. But feel free to take a look at that if you guys are interested. And then this is another Substack that I know who Scott Ritter is, and many of you guys do as well. Haven't really followed his work, but have heard interviews with him. Oh, it's 11:11. And I wanted to mention this just because, if they're going after him, they can go after anybody. Again, this is on Scott Ritter's Substack. He's been debanked. It says today, this is dated the 14th, so 4 days ago. January 14th, 2026, today, my banking institution of 26 years, Citizen Bank, declared that they were ending their banking relationship with me. My accounts were zeroed out without explanation. Wow. While I may eventually see this money returned to me, the question of why this occurred remains unanswered, raising a whole host of issues related to civil liberties. I've been debanked. I recently tried to use my bank-issued debit card. I've used this card consistently as my go-to method of payment for years. It was declined. When my wife went on the online banking app that we use for mobile banking, she was shocked to find that both our checking and savings account had been zeroed out. We literally had no money. No money. My wife called our local branch to find out what the problem was. In the past, the bank unilaterally closed the account because of suspicious activity they felt could be linked to possible identity theft, which, that I understand. In every case, once we either confirmed or denied the validity of a flagged charge, our account was returned to its normal status. When we tried to find out what the issue was, the bank said that there was no information on file as to why the account had been zeroed out, and we would need to bring the issue up with corporate headquarters. We called the number provided only to be told that Citizen Bank had closed our accounts. We were told that Citizens Bank had sent a letter containing more information. I rifled through a stack of unopened mail and found the letter in question. This letter is to inform you that Citizens has elected to discontinue its account relationship with you by closing my account, in parentheses, effective January 13th. So again, he's writing this article on the 14th. There was more. Citizens has the contractual right to close your account at any time, the letter declared, adding that Citizens is under no obligation to disclose to you its reasons for closing the account. At this time, therefore, Citizens' policy prevents the disclosure of any information concerning the decision to close the accounts. According to the December 2024 report issued by the House Judiciary Committee, debanking occurs when a bank closes an individual or corporate account because the account holder or their actions are subjectively determined to pose a financial, legal, or reputational risk to the financial institution. Yeah. It says, in short, I have done nothing wrong. My former bank manager agrees with me. No due process, no possibility of appeal. One doesn't begin to comprehend just how dependent we are on the digital economy until it's taken away from you. All my family's bills are paid electronically, drawing on funds that used to exist in the accounts that no longer exist. My debit card was my wallet. Cash was the stuff I carried with me to Russia because my American digital financial profile doesn't work in Russia. When you're debanked, you are literally disconnected from the modern world. So all that to say, if they can do it to him, they can do it to absolutely any of us, anyone, for any reason. There's a lot here. This is a pretty long Substack here. Anyways, looks like he's trying to make it right here, but there's only so much he can do. He's calling upon Kash Patel to investigate the FBI's National Security Division to find out what, if any, contact was made by FBI personnel and Citizens Bank regarding my financial activity and so forth. I don't think Kash Patel is going to even address a single thing, do you? Anyway, very sad. And that's, again, Scott Ritter that we're talking about here. So I just wanted to mention that and just show you how close we all are, really, to this beast system being completely and fully deployed so that we don't have a choice. And you can see how easy it is to upset people's lives. All right, so this one's another weird one, just showing the tyrannical nature, especially of EU countries. Big Brother, German authorities forced Lexus, the car company, Lexus, to turn off the parking heating in Lexus cars just when it got cold and people needed it. The legislator considers this an unnecessarily running of the engine or an avoidable exhaust gas pollution, which is prohibited. So Lexus has just been forced to turn off the ability by Germany here to turn off the ability to remote start the car. So you've probably seen that, if you don't have I don't have a car like that, but I'm just saying you've probably heard of it, where you can start the car remotely and let it warm up before you go get in it. Well, guess what? You can't anymore if you're in Germany and if you have a Lexus. So yeah, Big Brother, German authorities forced Lexus to turn off the parking heating in Lexus cars. Imagine if you bought a car and paid for specific features, but the government just turns it off because it's not green. I'm not joking. Toyota used remote access to turn off the preheating, which is used to heat up the cars before driving. You would turn it on 10 minutes before driving somewhere so your car is warm and de-iced already. which, a lot of people do that. If it's real cold, you go out and start your car, you let it warm up, you let the ice melt off a little bit, and then you go. Well, if you're using a remote start thing in Germany, it's now been turned off, so you can't do that anymore. Isn't that lovely? Not tyrannical at all. It says the function is still available for all pure electric vehicles and plug-in vehicles. For vehicles with conventional drive, this only works when the combustion engine is running. The legislator considers this an unnecessary running of the engine or an avoidable exhaust gas pollution, which is prohibited. This is not known to many users. In Europe, there is no uniform legal situation about which we have informed with a corresponding note in the app. And I wanted to show this one too. This is not really a video necessarily, although, you could watch it, but I didn't have it queued up. But we'll link to it in the Substack as well. And Jonathan Greenblatt, yet again, ADL leader, says Americans who criticize Jews in Israel will be monitored by the FBI. Quote, "We will monitor social media and check your bank accounts." So we were just talking about debanking earlier with Scott Ritter and his story. And now we're talking about check your bank accounts. The ADL Goblin is saying here. Jonathan Greenblatt, Americans who criticize Jews in Israel will be monitored by the FBI. We will monitor social media and check your bank accounts. Rob Dew says, look at the natural attack vector angle of his cash grab claw. Yeah. So that's what they have planned for us, just so you know. Just a little detail. Thought I would mention it. Jonathan Greenblatt is one evil dude. All right, let's see here. The post-millennial. Let's take a look at this one. Now, we were talking about the agitators, the people out there causing issues in Minnesota. Breaking right-wing activist Jake Lang assaulted in Minneapolis by mob of left-wing agitators. So here he is here. Jake Lang is an anti-Islam activist who was attacked in Minneapolis and assaulted by left-wing agitators on Saturday. Lang, who was also pardoned from his criminal activities on January 6th. I don't think there was any criminal activities. Was in Minnesota for his March Against Fraud event and was met with violent pushback. Photos and videos showed blood on Lang after he was dragged from a ledge and then beaten by a mob of left-wing agitators in Minneapolis. Lang then attempted to get away from the scene in a red sedan. Video posted on X showed the left-wing protesters trying to attack him as he entered the car. So, there's video. Minneapolis riot mob pursues anti-Islam activist Jake Lang to his vehicle and assaults him profusely. Yeah, Lang posted on X that he was stabbed by a crazy white commie leftist rioter, but that his tactical vest had blocked it. So, wow. Things are getting out of hand up there in Minnesota. So we'll see what happens. Will Trump declare the Insurrection Act? My guess is, going back to what we said earlier, my guess is he'll have to. I think things are getting too far out of control. So this is Pastor Adam Fannin, Law of Liberty Baptist Church. I've watched some of his presentations before, some of his sermons, and thought they were really good. And this particular one, I have not watched yet, but I'm going to. It's called Mark of the Beast and Zionism. Christian Pastor Adam Fannin. This was posted 2 days ago. So my guess is it'll be really good and very accurate. So we'll link to this in the Substack post that I sent out on Tuesday. Make sure you're on that list. diamonddisc.substack.com. And, you can certainly look it up, though, on YouTube. It is just Mark of the Beast and Zionism, and then type in Adam Fannin, Fannin, Law of Liberty, maybe. You could type in any of that and probably find it. Lots of comments here on this video. So, yeah, I think he's, even without hearing it, I think whatever he says is probably going to be dead on. Just guessing. But I will confirm that by watching that as soon as possible. Just found it today, though, so I didn't have time to give it a watch quite yet. All right, and then there's this one. This is a woman that everybody's been warning about, and she was elected anyway. The new Virginia governor, Abigail Spanberger. She was the one that was just ignoring her rival, who was the Republican black lady, real nice lady, who was asking her certain questions on their debate that they had, and Spanberger was just staring straight ahead at the camera, just completely ignoring what she said, and pretended like she wasn't hearing her and that the other woman at the other lectern didn't exist. That was her treatment. That was her answer for not being able to or not wanting to confront whatever questions was being asked of her. She just ignored them, which that is Democrat standard operating procedure. That's what they do. They just ignore. And that's what, that's what the Obama regime did. That's what the Biden regime did to an art form. They just ignored. So anyway, on her first day as governor, Abigail Spanberger, I mispronounce it on purpose and say Spamberger, but it's Spanberger with an N, made a decisive move. She vetoed Executive Order 47, ending Virginia's participation in the federal 287G program that allowed local law enforcement to act as ICE agents. That was her first action. Swift action represents a major victory for immigrant advocacy groups like CASA, C-A-S-A, or CASA in Action, whose years of organizing and pressure from immigrant communities helped shape this outcome. The decision carries particular weight, given that Latino voters were a decisive force in Spanberger's election, with the largest shifts from the 2024 presidential election occurring in Virginia's most heavily Hispanic communities. So, and then she's announcing it as, hailing it as a historic day and so forth. Anyway, not that surprised, but that is a crazy witch person who is now in charge of Virginia. And this picture is actually really telling. She's being sworn in here. Inauguration of Abigail Spanberger with her family, with her daughters. This daughter right here looks really super concerned about mom taking over, because she knows. Anyway, I just wanted to point that out. That is, I guess, a local Channel 12, whatever, Virginia, that is WWBT maybe. So that is what that is, and just wanted to mention it. Now I've got a Daily Mail article. Retail apocalypse grips the country with more than 8,000 great American stores to close. 8,000 great American stores to close, and experts say the bloodbath will only get worse. The ongoing retail bloodbath saw Macy's announce last week that it was to close 14 underproductive stores across 12 states. And Saks Global Group filed for bankruptcy, marking one of the largest retail failures since the pandemic. 8,200 U.S. shops shut down in 2025. And now this is listing some of the big ones here. Rite Aid, with almost 1,300 stores just by itself. Rite Aid. Joann is another one. Joann, sewing and crafts and stuff like that. Party City. Party City's a big one. Big Lots, closing a bunch of theirs. Claire's, Walgreens, 7-Eleven, Forever 21, whatever that is, CVS, Dollar General, Giant Eagle, and so on and so on and so on. Winn-Dixie, Family Dollar, Macy's, Dollar Tree, GameStop, Foot Locker. There's just a ton of them here. Closing mini stores. So yeah, 8,200 shops, and that's just last year. So whatever Trump says about the economy, that it's being kickstarted and then it's going full steam and stuff, it ain't. Not really. Yeah, it's okay for some people, for sure, but for many, it is not. Anyway, all right, and then thought this one was worth mentioning too. Rasmussen reports says most voters concerned about radical Islam. The influence of radical Islam in the U.S. is a cause for concern for a majority of voters who oppose Muslims forming separate communities here. The latest Rasmussen report survey finds that 77% of likely U.S. voters are concerned about the influence of radical Islam in America, including 41% who are very concerned. Just 18% aren't concerned about radical Islam. Not at all. Nope, it's just totally fine and nothing's wrong. 18% have no idea about radical Islam, apparently. 41% are very concerned, and 77% are concerned to some degree. Well, you should be. You should be very concerned because you can sum up Islam, and it's not radical Islam, it's just Islam. You can sum it up with 3 words: convert or die. That's what Islam is really about. Convert or die. And then there's this Rasmussen report. Just 25% of people pay for gym memberships. What about you guys? Did you guys make any New Year's resolutions to go to the gym and start working out and all that stuff? Most Americans exercise regularly. I sort of doubt that, but that's what this says. But find it more convenient to do so at home than to join a gym. Well, it is expensive, or it can be. The latest Rasmussen reports survey finds that 86% of American adults exercise at least once a week, including 26% who exercise 4 to 5 times weekly and 16% who exercise daily or almost every day. Only 9% say that they never exercise. These findings have not changed much since 2022. So how about that for numbers? Those are higher numbers than I would have thought. 86% of American adults exercise at least once a week. 26% who exercise 4 to 5 times a week, and 16 do so daily. So how about you guys? I am in the 16% at this point, but I was in the 9% for a while. Never exercised, but now I do. So anyway, hopefully you guys are helping to also take care of yourselves as much as possible. Try to eat right, but exercise is really, really important. It doesn't have to be with the paid gym membership, but it is interesting that that the numbers bear out that way in this particular article, at least. Pretty wild. And then let's see, we have a Wise Wolf archive that we're going to look at, just to see what's new on the old Wise Wolf media. Always good. It says your grandchildren will be ruled by robots unless you pay attention right now. 5 million Shiite jobs, 5 million robots, and a plan you're not supposed to see. So that is the most recent Wise Wolf post on Substack. Let's see here. Both sides are calling me a traitor. That's how I know I'm right. You're not a Republican or a Democrat. You're a puppet. Let me cut your strings. That's good. So these are just some of the headlines on some of their new articles. They post something almost every day here. Sometimes multiple times per day. So, yeah. JFK said no one should be rich enough to buy the government, and then his head exploded. Yeah. He was one of the last to truly be independent, I think. As far as presidents go, anyway. Let's see here. Leo Hohmann's Substack. Was the Iran war averted or just postponed? That's a good question. We touched on that at the beginning of the show tonight, but I don't know. This could be like what they were doing in Venezuela, where they said, we're going in 24 hours. It's going to be within 48 hours. And then, a week will go by and then they'll do it again. We're going to go in very soon, anytime. And then nothing happens, and this just keeps repeating this process over and over. And then finally, it's sort of the boy who cried wolf. Then finally they just go in and surprise everybody because no one's expecting it at that point. And maybe that's what they're going to do with Iran as well. I don't know. I'm hoping, though, that it will be averted. But, it is Israel involved here. So I just don't see how that would be the case. But anyway, it says war fever is building for another Middle East regime change operation. But what are the potential outcomes for Iran and the region? Yeah, so that is two of the most recent Substack posts here from Leo Hohmann. His stuff's always really good. So feel free to have a look at that. Natural news article, Smartphone Addiction and EMF Exposure, the Hidden Health Crisis, Reshaping Minds and Bodies. Yeah, this picture is kind of funny because they're all 5 people standing there together. They could be talking to each other, but they're all on their phones. And that is something that we all see all the time, that type of thing, all the time. I'm constantly amazed at how people watch television now. They just have the TV on, and they're looking at their phone the entire time. So I'm like, well, are you watching TV or are you just on your phone? And I don't know. It's just interesting. It's such an addictive thing. It's like kind of like cocaine addiction, having phones with you all the time. Excessive use alters brain chemistry, increasing GABA inhibitory and reducing glutamate stimulatory, leading to anxiety, depression, and addiction-like behaviors. Cognitive therapy can help restore balance. Smartphones and Wi-Fi emit radiation that interferes with the body's bioelectric system, potentially causing brain tumors, sleep disorders, and metabolic dysfunction, like diabetes-type symptoms. Thinner skulls and developing brains make kids more susceptible to brain cancer from heavy cell phone use. Teens show higher risks of tumors, cognitive decline, and behavioral issues. Yeah, especially that last thing. Around 5% of people in developed nations suffer severe reactions, fatigue, migraines, and arrhythmias from EMF exposure worsened by environmental toxins like heavy metals and mold. Reduce screen time. Use speakerphones/headsets. Spend time in nature and detox from environmental toxins to minimize EMF damage. Experts warn that unchecked wireless expansion could trigger a health crisis akin to tobacco or asbestos. Yes, and I've mentioned, going back years on my Facebook page, at least, maybe other places, that indeed EMF, wireless radiation, is a toxin of the worst kind. And, it's right up there with some of the worst possible chemicals and things like that you could be exposed to. And, people don't really realize it, or maybe they're just too addicted to really care. That's often, I think, what's going on. One other thing you can do here, health-wise, that's pretty simple for most people, is turn off your Wi-Fi at night when you go to bed. You don't have to unplug everything. You don't have to power down necessarily. Just, most Wi-Fi routers have a button that lets you turn off the wireless signal. Maybe right on top, maybe in the back. Hit the button. Turn off the Wi-Fi signal part and put your cell phone, instead of on your nightstand right next to you. Hopefully you're not using it as an alarm clock. I know people that do that. Get yourself an actual clock radio. Put your cell phone in a bedroom or somewhere as far away from where you sleep as possible. So do those two things, and I think you will be sleeping a lot better if you're having trouble. I know people that have done those things. Just turning the Wi-Fi off at night helps a lot of people. But putting your phone as far away from you as possible while you're sleeping is a really good idea. you'll get better sleep for sure. And sleep is really, really important. I mentioned exercise earlier, something I am personally trying to do more of. And I'm finding that sleeping better is really the key. From recovery, from workouts and exercise, sleeping better is really the key. And so therefore you want to get as good of sleep as you can. So get rid of the EMF and Wi-Fi and cell phones and stuff like that while you're trying to rest and reset. That's the best thing you can do, in my opinion. But I'm not a doctor. But anyway, yeah, it's just kind of like common sense at this point, really. All right, and then let's see, the Wine Press Substack, something we usually look at as well. We have the dumbing down, brain scans, and new studies reveal excessive use of AI and what it does to your brain. Look at this guy. He's missing half of his head. Western megabanks are now going all in on Bitcoin, stablecoin, and tokenization. Yeah, and we found out earlier they're also debanking people. Yeah. Show us your papers. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem confirms that ICE will be asking for people's papers. Yes, but it's illegal, so they're asking. Now, there may be some Americans who get asked too. I won't debate that. But remember, the problem was created mostly by the Biden administration, letting in all of the millions and millions and millions of illegals. How are we going to find them? They don't all look the same. They look often, very similar, but they don't always look the same. And sometimes people might get offended. But if you can prove who you are, I guess it's probably not a huge deal, is it? Given the fact that we're trying to export as many of the bad guys as possible. All right, and then let's see here. JP Morgan forecasts surge in biometric payments and blockchain and digital ID wallet usage, I guess. So that is a few of the most recent headlines on the Wine Press Substack. Got a few InfoWars articles as well. Let's see. Trump in first suggests Iran regime change. Time to look for new leadership. So now this is dated today. So this is something that I guess is pretty new news here. Referencing Ayatollah, Trump told Politico the best decision he ever made was not hanging more than 800 people 2 days ago. Yeah, I actually had a video queued up for that tonight. I'm not sure we'll get to it, but yeah, that was what they were going to do. They were going to hang a bunch of these protesters, and apparently they didn't do that, although I don't know how they've confirmed that that's the case when they've shut down their internet. Iran did. It says the deadly unrest and protests in Iran have largely gone quiet, but White House pressure on Tehran has not. Trump over the weekend, for the first time in the 2-week crisis, called for the end of the Iranian supreme leader's rule. His words came in an interview with Politico. It's time to look for new leadership in Iran, he said. Well, he did say that. It doesn't mean that he's planning to do it, but again, like Maduro, he could be bluffing to some degree too. I have no idea. And also, again, Israel wants that. They want it as much as they want anything. And Trump has been pretty much chomping at the bit to do anything and everything that Israel wants, hasn't he? EU hosts emergency meeting over Trump's Greenland tariffs. Germany threatens World Cup boycott. We're not going to outsource our national security, Treasury Secretary said. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent clarified Trump's positioning on Greenland overnight, stating that we are not going to outsource our national security. The elites of the EU are not best pleased at Trump's tariff threat, and some of them have immediately called an emergency meeting of the ambassadors from the bloc's 27 nations to discuss how sternly worded their email response would be. Ooh, sternly worded emails. Yeah, and gee, wouldn't it be terrible if the U.S. got boycotted from the, the World Cup? That'd be terrible. No soccer for you. I know I would be very disappointed. Anyway, apparently it's a very popular sport in the rest of the world. No, we do have a soccer team here in Nashville, and apparently they're really good, but ask me if I've ever seen a single game. That would be no. I have not. It just doesn't interest me. I do like hockey, though. Hockey's fun to watch. Pentagon readies 1,500 troops to control Minnesota riots, report. Again, we talked about this earlier. Alaska-based 11th Airborne Division. Interesting that they chose them. I don't know why they did, but they did. And, we'll see if that comes to fruition. I don't know. All right, and then a couple of Not the Bee articles tonight. This was a wacky one. Apparently, this lady was okay. Watch, woman who drove her car into the water, rescued by bystanders, including a Navy rescue swimmer. This is an incredible rescue video from Virginia Beach, Virginia. We were just talking about Virginia earlier, where it looked like they weren't going to be able to get there in time. A woman drove her vehicle into the ocean behind Bubba's Seafood, and a group of toxically masculine men jumped into action to help her. Watch the first video. Wild. SUV plunges into water behind Bubba's in Virginia Beach today. Navy rescue swimmer and bystanders smash windows and save the driver as it sinks. Real heroes. So this first video, I did watch it, and it actually ends, the video ends as the water goes underwater. As the car goes completely underwater. So it's kind of like it leaves you hanging. You don't know what happens here. Second angle with the rescue. I'm going to mute it just so it doesn't interfere with what I'm saying, what I'm reading here. But you can see the car's just drifting away here. And there's a person on the back who's gone down inside the back of the car, and they're throwing stuff out to try and get to the driver to bring her up out in the back of the car. And this guy over here is on the hood of the car, not hanging on. Barely hanging on, and then he goes into the water. But you can see the car's going down pretty quickly. He swims away. And there's still a guy in the car here that goes in to get her. I don't know if that's the Navy swimmer or not. But the car's going down pretty quickly. And you can hear her, if you watch the video, you can hear her screaming. So I don't know if she was hurt or not. Probably not. She's probably just panicking. Says, fortunately for the woman in the car, one of the men who was eating at Bubba's happened to be a Navy rescue swimmer. And then here's more video and interview with the Navy swimmer. But here they are coming out of the water here, see? I don't know. Apparently everybody was okay. So they've got her. They got her out. But again, this is Virginia in January. That's some cold water right there. So I would think that part of it would be very shocking. Never mind the fact that the car's in the water. So I'm wondering how that happened. What I remember before, and I'm guessing, it doesn't really say here, but I'm guessing she was following her GPS. And sometimes, I've heard of other people doing this too. They follow their GPS so closely, they turn when the computer system tells them to turn, and they're not looking and paying attention to what they're about to do. So I'm not saying this is what happened, but I've heard of this before, where people have followed their GPS directly into a lake. And it could be that the road ended and the GPS map didn't update or something, like it wasn't all complete information, and she drove right off of the road into the water. I have no idea, but I'm just saying that type of thing does happen, and maybe that's what it was. Luckily, everyone was okay, and how crazy is it that there was a Navy rescue swimmer right there to help her out? That is insane. All right, and then another Not the Bee article. Bear breaks into Gatlinburg candy store for the fourth time since Christmas. Glades, Glades, homemade candies, has had a rough year so far. Their shop has been terrorized by a black bear with a sweet tooth, who has broken into the store 4 times since Christmas. Here he is right here. The owners posted photos of the damage on Facebook asking for prayers. I'm just teasing. That's not really him. That's Winnie the Pooh. But yeah, look at the damage this bear's doing. So he's completely wrecking the place. I have been to Gatlinburg many times. I don't remember this particular candy store. I don't know if it's on the main drag there or where it is, but this is a post about it and then some pictures. Every reasonable precaution to prevent the bear from accessing our property has been taken. The store uses bear-proof dumpsters, keeps the store locked up, but as you can see from the pictures, the locks don't seem to keep this guy out. Yeah, I don't know if that's candy or if that's something else right there, but, word to the wise, don't pick up stuff off of the floor and start eating it in a bear candy store break-in. That would not be a good plan. And here's Lucy figuring it out. So far, despite their best efforts, the bear just keeps coming back for more. And can you blame him? I'd be coming back for seconds and fourths of those homemade turtles, too. Pretty funny. Situation has been reported to the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency, and store owners say that they are hopeful that the bear can be safely relocated before he does any more damage to the shop. Too crazy. I don't know if that's actually him or not. I guess maybe it is. They would have probably caught him on a security camera or something. I don't know. How about that? Bears breaking into candy stores in Gatlinburg. Gatlinburg is really beautiful, by the way. If you guys have never been there, highly recommended. It's like a little Swiss town almost, or German town in the mountains of East Tennessee. It's quite beautiful. All right, GeoWatch for this week. Episode 545. Man, we just keep plugging away. We never miss a week. Dane always says it. Well, he often says that, yes, he's never missed a week, always stays at his post. And I would also mention I have never missed a week either. I've done all of these editions of Global Alert News for Mr. Dane. So, yes. So, watch Florida. Says rare snow taking aim at Florida. Georgia could make history, triggers winter storm warnings throughout the weekend. Snow in Florida? Question mark. Arctic blast to stun the South. Yes, it has gotten really cold here, by the way. I was going to look and see what the current temperature was. I'll look it up in a minute. It's cold. I want to say probably in the 20s. Cold front could bring rare snow to parts of Florida, including Tallahassee, but what about South Florida? Question mark. A Matrix Media sensationalized chemical snowstorm is scheduled for the Florida Gulf Coast with an atmospheric moisture flow straight out of the record warm Gulf of Mexico. Welcome to winter weather warfare. The chemical snow event comes almost exactly a year after the never before recorded New Orleans chemical ice nucleation blizzard. You guys might remember that last year. I remember reporting on it. Climate engineering operations are being ramped up around the world. Latest installment of Global Alert News is right here. So, yeah, that is the show from this week, Engineering Florida Snow. And I don't know. I'm not sure how much luck they will have. Let's do a quick search here and see. Current temp in Nashville. That's where I'm at. 29. It's 29 here right now. Pretty chilly. But yeah, that's they can certainly make it snow if they can make it snow at say 50 degrees with chemical ice nucleation. They can certainly make it snow at just about any temperature. So who knows? They might really try it. They might try and get some snowflakes flying in Florida. That would be very interesting and would certainly make the news, wouldn't it? Of course it would. That's what they're good at. Making headlines, and people are confused about the true state of the climate, as Mr. Dane says. Here's the 6 to 10 day outlook. Kind of have a split, more or less, but it's not quite down the middle, is it? January 24 to 28. Updated earlier today. So it looks like cold for 3/4 of the U.S. Warm out west. above normal for Southern California and Vegas and Arizona and southwestern Utah, but pretty much cold everywhere else. So I'm in the blue band right here, kind of in between. So yeah, they'll probably bring us some snow. That's my guess. They usually do. Third week in January, you can pretty much always expect something like that around here. I wouldn't say you can set your clock by it, but it is pretty dependable that you'll get some snow at some point at the end of January, and then usually in February as well. Typically, where I live, we get ice. We tend to get rain that turns to ice, and then we have hills around here. So then all the hills around here that have roads on them are frozen solid with freezing rain that turns to ice, and then it's just a roller coaster everywhere. So it doesn't take much to shut things down. We won't get much snow, and if we do, it won't stick around for very long, most likely. But we probably will get some, I'm guessing. It may not be this week, but it will probably be pretty soon, this month or next month. By March, pretty much no chance that we'll get any snow. But again, it is all chemicals. It is completely artificial, as you can imagine. So therefore, if you have snow in your area, do not eat it. Never eat the snow. It is highly toxic. Highly toxic. And I'm not joking. It really is bad. We actually have, I don't think I have it pulled up, but we actually have some snow and rain tests on lab tests on our site on GeoWatch. So if you ever want to look at that, it is bad. So, okay, and then climate reanalyzer for the next few days. This is starting really now. You can see where I'm at. We're 5 degrees below normal. So the chemical cool down is well in effect. And then, let's see, 4 to 6 days out, talking January 22. Yeah, about the same, 5 degrees. So it's going to be cold right where I'm at. And in a big chunk of the U.S., you can see it even more so here maybe, 8 degrees colder than normal by the 25th of January. So we got cold, cold, cold. And again, about as artificial as it gets. Not natural, especially when you have a split. You can see the split here. You can see the split on the other page that we looked at right before this. Warm out west and cold throughout the east and Midwest and south. So they are hammering us with chemical ice nucleation, artificial cold events. That's what they do. Climate and economy news. Just take a look at it real quick. See if there's any headlines that jump out at me. We usually pull this up because I know Mr. Dane uses this site to get some of the headlines he talks about on Global Alert News. So I thought I would share it with you guys. It does have some pretty good articles on just the true state of what's actually happening around the world. Thousands of cities around the world saw their hottest year on record last year, from Shanghai to Moscow to Salt Lake City. We have the Arctic sea ice meltdown, and then again, they're measuring it differently than you might think. They're not measuring solid ice, they're measuring any amount of slush. They consider that sea ice. This cruise line is teaching guests how to track climate change in polar ice caps. Well, anyway, droughts and all kinds of messes here. We have Cape Town sounds alarm as dam levels plummet after heat wave. Wow. I've actually been to Cape Town before. More than 100 people die after torrential rain and flooding in South Africa. So they have, that's crazy. Cape Town is like heat waves and drought, and just a matter of, I don't know, several hundred miles away in eastern South Africa and Zimbabwe, they're having floods. So crazy. Anyway, extreme snowfall, an effect of global warming. No, extreme snowfall will be an effect of chemical ice nucleation. So, they're not going to talk about that kind of stuff here, but we know, don't we? Yep, lots of flooding and total chaos and craziness. Lake Mead, here's a Lake Mead prediction. Projected record low gets even lower. Yeah, we were about a year ago, we were up in at the Hoover Dam in the Las Vegas area, and Lake Mead was really low then. So I'm sure it's probably even worse now, because I don't think they've had all that much water since last year. I don't think. All right, and then what else we have? 2 more articles here tonight, and then we'll wrap it up. Actually, 3 more. All right, this one is... Let's look at it real quick. Mentioned this earlier, actually. Trump unveils Gaza Oversight Board. Netanyahu fires back. I guess he doesn't like that idea. Maybe he wants to be in charge. It says the White House announced Friday the composition of the Gaza Executive Board, a key panel tasked with overseeing reconstruction and governance in Gaza. Notice the Palestinians won't be allowed to have any say because they will be moved to Somaliland. Let's see here. As part of Trump's 20-point peace plan, within hours, Netanyahu issued a rare public rebuke of the administration, declaring the board's makeup runs contrary to Israeli policy. Oh, so that means that Netanyahu will get his way, most likely, because he's the true president of the United States, apparently. Let's see. Dispute centers on the inclusion of the Turkish foreign minister and senior Qatari diplomat. Oh, okay. So I guess there's a few people that Israel's not too excited about being involved in the old rebuild. So again, they'll get their way. Mark my words. They always do, don't they? Israel to award Charlie Kirk posthumously for standing with the Jewish people. Which, in and of itself, that's probably true, but he didn't necessarily stand with Zionism and Netanyahu and the regime until his dying day. So, I don't know. I think they just like to hitch their wagons to old Charlie here and try and squeeze as much out of him as possible. Now, I did have one more thing here I was going to mention just because I thought it was interesting. I had heard that there was an earthquake in Israel earlier in the week. I was looking to see when it was. I found it on the USGS site. And when you click on it, it's showing it was a magnitude of 4.2 on the 15th. So it was 3 days ago now. So there was an earthquake in Israel. 4.2 is not much, but I think it's kind of interesting just because I've been, postulating that at least over the last, 5 years, that there will be some sort of an earthquake that will create an issue with the structure that is really Fort Antonia, which they call the Temple Mount, which is where they will eventually build the third temple. So the Temple Mount is actually Fort Antonia, a Roman fortress. But they need some sort of damage to occur to the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the other buildings there on the top of Temple Mount so that they can claim, see, it's God's judgment on Islam, and we have to now build our holy temple. That's just sort of my postulating. That's all that is. There's no basis in anything other than that's how I sort of can see it unfolding, even though it may not happen that way. It is interesting that there was an earthquake there recently, though, in the last few days. 4.2, it's not tiny, not huge by any stretch, but here's West Bank and Jerusalem proper, so it's not all that far away. So who knows? Something like that could be on the docket on the to-do list of the Israelis. Because keep in mind, they do have, or I should say that they exist, in general, tectonic weaponry. So I would think that they could have an earthquake zeroed in on any area there that they wanted to. It's just a matter of when it fits their itinerary, whenever they think it's a good idea. So, but they won't completely wreck the Temple Mount because they want to build the temple there. They want to get rid of what's there now. But they don't want to be blamed for bombing it or blowing it up. So I think an earthquake would be the perfect response. And then if it also damages other areas of Israel, then you will have the outpouring of the other countries in the world wanting to go help, wanting to make sure Israel gets all sorts of new help and new funds to build things. And I could see at that point where they could say, well, we really just want to build our temple, so now's the time. And also they need the uncovering of the Ark of the Covenant, for lack of a better word. I mean, the Ark of the Covenant is also there in Jerusalem in the cave there, the cave temple. And an earthquake, if it was done the right way, could also reveal that. And again, we're right upon the precipice of the whole end time scenario, in my opinion, unfolding. So, pretty interesting. I know that's just a little 4.2 earthquake, but perhaps it's a sign of things to come, but perhaps not. It's really hard to say. I just thought it was interesting and wanted to mention it. Just kind of heard that had happened earlier in the week. So I guess that's it for me tonight. Let's see here. Make sure you're on the Substack list, diamonddisc.substack.com, and we'll get you signed up and totally free, and you'll get all of the emails that I send out that really just a few a week. I do have people sign up and get on the list and then jump off the list when they actually receive an email from me. I guess their inbox got offended. I don't know. Most people don't do that, but I do have some people that do that, unfortunately. But, if you don't want to be on the list, then by all means, don't be on the list. Otherwise, you will get an email, probably one on Sunday, one on Monday, one on Tuesday. That's usually how I do it. Sunday would be the announcement of the show that night with the links for that. Monday would just be the email of the podcast link from the show on Sunday night. And then Tuesday is the main email with all of the show links from that Sunday night show, where I talked about various articles and things and videos. So we have links on that Tuesday email, really, that kind of covers everything. So that's pretty much it. So you won't get barraged. I don't just email you willy-nilly. It's really just centered around the show. And lots of people do seem to like those emails as well. So make sure you're on the list, and it's totally free. Just type your email in right here and hit subscribe. And there is a way to support the show if you guys want. And I didn't pull it up, but there's also a subscribe star as well. You'll find those links in the the description box below the video. So if you guys want to help the show, that would really mean a lot to me. And for whatever reason, I don't know if it's the economy or if it is just the fact that we've turned over into a new year and people are changing things or not paying attention to their credit card bills. But I've had a whole bunch of cancellations lately. And nobody complaining, nobody saying anything. It's just that their billing just stops. And then therefore, that money doesn't come into me to help me pay my bills. So I've had, I don't know, probably at least 5 paid subscribers on Subscribestar all drop off all at the same time. And no complaints. So I don't think it's necessarily anything I'm doing. I think it's just people aren't paying attention to their credit card statements or whatever, and they're getting dropped. I don't know why. But it's nothing I'm doing. If you got dropped from Subscribestar, it was not my doing. It was something with your card, I suppose. I'm just putting it out there. If you guys want to check into it, that would be awesome. If not, that's totally fine, and I understand. You can help me. The free best way to help me is simply by sharing the links to the show. So you can share the links on the uploaded shows that I put up on Rumble and BitChute and Brighteon and Facebook, and of course YouTube. So certainly appreciate that, you guys. And we're running long tonight, so I don't think I'll play another video, but I did have some other videos that we can save for next week. And I do appreciate your, patience with me having to take little breaks here and there to let my voice rest and get a drink and all that stuff, because I don't normally talk all that much. I'm talking a lot right now. But anyway, hope you guys have a really good week this week, and I think we covered pretty much everything we needed to tonight as far as that goes. So I hope you guys have a blessed one this week, and we'll do it all again next week again, and that will be, the 26th, 25th? So January 25th, may have snow by then, I don't know. 9 p.m. start time, so we'll do it then. Hope you guys have a blessed week this week, and have a wonderful last week of January, and we'll see what happens with the unfolding of the biblical end times, of which I believe we are smack dab in the middle of. So I'll take a look at the comments offline, just because we're running so long tonight, and we'll address those next week if anything comes up. But again, blessings, you guys. Love you lots, and we'll talk again real soon.